Which is, well, that is a good question.
What's that?
A lot of us have been talking about how the county has a $3 million-ish cap on the Mills Act designations. And the curiosity is, can a city within the county just override that and say, even though
that's
the
only
property...
for county. No, that's within, so the Mills Act gives you the authority within every jurisdiction. So the county is its own jurisdiction. We are outside of their jurisdiction. With all the properties that are in the county, that's how they apply it.
Yeah.
That's the county's. Yeah, right now our rules are different. So 6 months ago, we had a policy conversation with the council, and they said, you know, we're happy. So now we're gonna have that conversation again in November.
Anyway, that's off topic. This is a good turnout and let's take advantage. Is that on? Hello? And Don is coming, we think?
He confirmed, yep, with me.
Yeah, because I brought mine May 23rd.
Try that, Victoria. We just talking to it. Hey, where do I can get the wireless mic to broadcast in the room? Say something into it, Victoria. I don't know if you can hear it. I don't hear it down there. Yeah, you want us to reset it? Okay. How about now? Oh, there we go. Okay. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Oh, it sounds right now. Okay, hello. Welcome, everybody, to summertime, and the project is easy. It's nice to have such a good turnout, especially in the heat. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We don't have Dawn yet, but we're going to get started just because we have a big task ahead of us. This is a meeting that's going to be entirely, we think, about photographs, images, the thing we've sort of just been waiting to tackle for a while. And Brandon has a really nice spreadsheet set up for us to make it organized.
Very nice.
I wanted to thank folks who are not here yet. We have 2 volunteers from the community. Eric Dyer, who is a design professional, an architect, who is not able to be here because of an emergency, but will be listening in to the tape later. And I just want to thank him in advance for, I think it's wonderful to have a design professional involved in such an aesthetic project, somebody who understands composition, who understands framing, et cetera, and communication through images. Also, we have, as you may have already know, we've mentioned before, a professional photographer who's partnering with him, Ian Martin, who will join us later, we think. But either way, we're going to get to both of them the information that comes out of this, thank you, out of this session today. And then the only other announcement I wanted to make to facilitate this, and then we're gonna have the just some quick announcements, hopefully quick, in general. The only other thing I wanted to say is that to facilitate this as well, Ian has set up 2 databases online. One of them is of his own snapshots from around town, which is just this, I think, a project that predates our efforts here, that he just has a curiosity to get to know every lot. So it's not that comprehensive yet, but it's over 500 photographs so far. Just and he wants me to do this disclaimer. They're not his professional work. It's just going like this, click, 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 click down the block so we can have a reference tool at street level. And he has that GPS coordinated so he can go reshoot anything that we find interesting. That link is on now, as of a few minutes ago, the steering committee website, steeringcommittee.universe with a univer.se. So it's the first thing, I think, when you go there now, you can click on it and see his database. And he welcomes anyone to look at it and, note things they like about a particular thing or dislike, and whether we want to reuse any of those and reshoot them. The other thing right below that you'll find is something else he set up, which is just a Dropbox. I think it's a Dropbox or a Google Doc that just we've for many months said, if anyone ever has a photo of anything and they want to turn it in to anybody for future use. So now there's a place to do that if we want to use it. And nobody Brandon and I couldn't think of anyone who had turned anything in yet. I just populated a couple of things just to show that you can do it. Just did that today. So those are two things to click on if you'd like, because I think this is the type of enterprise that is good for crowdsourcing. That's what we're going to do today. But if you're walking around and you're thinking about your homework, it's certainly, any visual images could lead to, insights. So that was all I had to say about that. Should I not? I did call the order without Dawn.
Public comments on non-agenda items.
True. Thank you for that. I don't know why I felt compelled to move right into that, but it's very exciting. That's why. It's so exciting. Yes. So that was agenda items. I apologize. But prior to that, does anyone have any comments off agenda items? Maybe now I've given you a sense of the enormity of what we have to do today. So off agenda items from the public first. Anybody? Anyone? Okay, then from the committee, and I think you had your hand up earlier.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I'd just like to bring to the group's attention something that's concerning me greatly, and that is every morning I wake up and there are chainsaws. That's the first thing I hear. And it's getting to the point where I know I've spoken to you about the issue of the forest, but I think that things are moving so quickly in town, and there's so much work being done on the forest that pretty soon the genie is going to be out of the box, or the horse is going to be out of the barn, and we're going to be asking ourselves, well, how did all of this happen? And so my strong opinion is, and I've been going to the Forest and Beach Commission meetings, that we have a real problem. The general plan is not being observed, and also the local coastal plan, and at times even our ordinance.
Do you
and
have a recommendation, Melanie? I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I don't mean to cut you off,
Yeah.
but I just want
Yeah.
to go to an action item as soon
Yeah,
as possible.
well, I just wanted to set the stage
Yes.
because it's, and it involves you too. So anyway, what I'd like to ask a group, our steering committee, is given the tremendous number of activity on the forest, that we ask the city administrator, send a letter to him and ask him to curtail the cutting that's going on, the major cutting that's going on in the forest, because it is in violation of key sections of the general plan and the local coastal plan. And I even believe part of our current forest master plan. And I think the root of some of this is what I talked to you about before, is that there are certain people who consider
But Melanie, let's
the
just-
forest.
sorry again. Let's get
No,
right,
but it does-
let's get right to the proposal. Sorry again.
Okay.
I hate it, but we
Okay.
really have too much to do. So could you just propose, and we can take a vote if we need to?
Okay.
And I'm going to jump in. I don't think you actually can, because we don't have anything on the agenda that says you guys are going to vote on sending a letter to the city administrator about forest actions and things like that. So we got to stick to what's
or maybe recommend something. for-
Okay, that we have it for the next, yeah, for the next agenda.
And maybe you
Yeah.
could draft something. and
Sure,
we-
sure, and then have you vote on it. Because I think it totally affects not just the forest, but our landscape ordinance that we've been
No
trying to
doubt.
get some attention to.
No doubt it's related.
Yeah, okay, this is
but
fine.
not to the agenda today,
Yeah, okay,
so
no,
let's-
that's okay.
Okay, sorry, so, but bring
I
it
will,
more
I will,
concrete and we
I
can
will.
agendize it.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. All right, any other announcements from the three of us, the of you all that are still here? Doug? No one? Nothing? Okay. All right, Brandon, over to you for any
Okay.
announcements and/or.
No announcements. I guess I'll just tee this up by saying how this fits into where we're going next. So this is, we've been talking about needing to go through all the photographs in the 2 drafts we've worked on. This is a big part of what we need at the staff level to put back together this next draft. We've talked about the sandwich, we've talked about, you know, the different parts of the sandwich. We've been using that analogy. This is a big part of it. So I think once we get through this exercise and we get the reshoots and we have those new photos, then we can finally put together that draft. So that's a big part of what this is, where we're at in the process. So what everyone has in front of them, and if they don't have them, there's more at the front, is you should have a copy of both of the brevity drafts that we've been working on over so many months, so the residential and commercial, the shorter drafts, and then you should have a larger Excel worksheet. I apologize, it doesn't say it on the top, but the Excel worksheet that has all tan color on the front, that's your residential version. The one that has blue that starts with it, that's the commercial version. So, yeah.
Why are we working off the February draft when we have a May draft?
I think that this is what was on, like, it was just,
Our latest draft was May 23rd.
yeah.
And I brought my May draft too.
Okay, I apologize. I think we printed this off of the steering committee website, but we might have printed the wrong one.
I assume the photos are.
The photos are the same. The photos haven't changed, so,
I could bring up, certainly, and you have your,
Mhm.
bring up if any of the verbiage is
Okay.
altered.
okay, that would be good. Sorry about that. Good catch, Mary Ann. Okay, so, where was it?
Also, real quick, do you think that there's any value to starting with the commercial? I just always feel like the commercial is always neglected.
Sure, we can
So-
start either way. Let me get through the explanation of what the exercise is first, if that's okay. So what you have are 2 spreadsheets, one for commercial, one residential. What the plan is you can see in the column here on the left, we have the page number. So that's the page number in the document, although that might be off now, possibly because we have the wrong draft here, but the one you have in front of you. And then the guideline identifier, those are the numbered guidelines all the way throughout. So we're hopefully can just go guideline by guideline, and many of them are just going to be, now this doesn't need a picture. We can tell really quickly by looking at it, it just says something that doesn't really even warrant a picture. And some of them already have pictures associated with them, and you'll see that in that description of existing photo or sketch. So like on the residential one, the one that has the all tan column, guideline identifier 1.1.4 does have a sketch already that exists. It talks about what it is and what it does. And then on the far right-hand side, this is the important part where we're going to be taking notes. Do we need to keep the picture, replace the picture, delete it, move it, add a picture for something that doesn't have one? So hopefully we can go just line by line, quickly run through them. Some of them certainly will take more conversation about, what do we want to try to capture in a picture. But yeah, let's just give it a shot. And if it sounds like the chair, you'd like to recommend we start on the commercial,
Just for
that's
fun, just mix it
sure.
up.
It sounds like fun. Okay, so we can start on the commercial one then. So I would
The thicker one, the residential, there's no header on here.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. So the thicker one with the all tan on the front is residential. The one with the blue is commercial. Yep. So if
Any questions before we
Yeah,
get started?
anybody-
Just on what's going on here?
I don't have a copy of the 2 spreadsheets.
oh, I'm sorry, they're up here. All right, so we can start out slow here. So let's go to the commercial design guidelines here and have our commercial spreadsheet, and we'll look at guideline identifier 1.0.0, which is really the header of the whole thing. It says preserve, restore, and enhance the forest and all improvement projects, private, public, and otherwise.
And can I use the mic here? I just want to point out that we can also have general discussions about the role of photography, the fact that we have different layers of guidelines, in other words, we have the 6 main ones, and then we have sub, and then we have sub-sub. So, for example, the first thing, this would be a general question, the first thing that comes to mind for me about 1.0.0 is, this is a general guideline under which all these other things fall. Do we want to have in general, at a guideline 1 through 6 level, a different strategy for the anything different about the photography that would be right there? It's just, I'm throwing that out there. So it's not just a question about maybe meeting the illustration of that point, but maybe, again, the role of that point. It's a larger point. It's a larger category of guideline. We have nothing now here.
Are we planning on adding over under each picture the section it refers to?
Yeah, we'll put, yeah, exactly. We'll make sure that they relate to what they're supposed to relate to, because that was missing. So, I mean, I don't know, Madam Chair, you tell me how you want to do this, but I'm not hearing anybody. Personally, I don't think we need a picture for the headline. But if anybody feels differently, now's the time.
Well, I would represent something I heard out there, not here in the meeting, but from a citizen, that the idea, for example, of having a larger introductory photo, almost like, you know, we have the chapters of the residential, commercial, and maybe municipal. These are sort of sub-chapters. Maybe there's a big photo that, and Melanie likes that comes prior to the 1.0.0, that just captures the forest. I don't know what that would look like, but is that a yes?
No.
No, it's not.
I'm thinking it's hard to capture in one photo that general concept.
Or a page of photos.
No, they just do it on the back, just like in the current guidelines, you know. There's this, and it appears a number of places in the guidelines. It's a beautiful, full photo this big that covers the page that really talks about our urbanized forest.
Well, what is the general feeling of the room about that particular thing? Because do people think it should?
On that, just I don't want to be using a paper and ink for people to use the finished document. So maybe at the chapter head do something that's a little bigger than just the column images, but I would not do a full page.
Oh, and I should point out that as the secretary for the group, when we're looking at these reorganization documents that we have been looking at with text on the left and photos on the right, that is I think a formatting that will not work going forward. That is simply a way to get through the text that we've been getting through, because as you add or format photographs, they will not fit or be geographically close to the point that they serve if they have to be rigidly on the right hand. So we, at some point, are going to have the photos intermixed, just like a normal book, you know, just like any book you would read. They can't be in this strict column structure. So I just throw that out there. They can be any size, they can be any shape or any proportion, they can be horizontal, they can be vertical, they can be a collection of a couple examples that are then close to the thing or just below or just mixed in with the text that they refer to. We do not, I don't think, want to get photos like off onto the next page that actually are referring to a particular principle on the prior page. So please don't feel restricted to this. This was a text exercise. So now that we're moving to images, we need to think, it's hard maybe with this in front of you, but think about how, you know, they will be or they could be next to the point that is being made.
So let's try this then to try to get the first one. So currently there's no picture for 1.0.0. Does anybody feel that it needs a picture? Let's just maybe start there.
Melanie says yes.
Okay, a bigger, I'm looking mostly at the steering committee on this one, but obviously we're taking public input too, so.
What do you all think? I'm with Melanie. And here's, I'll also say, to argue the point a little bit, I don't want anyone to think that 1.0.0 is a chapter heading. It's not a chapter heading. It is a principle, a guideline in and of itself. So it needs to have some comparability to the other things. If other things have illustrations, then I believe that just as sort of a fairness and to make the point that this also must be, adhered to, I think it should have a photo. It shouldn't be exempt from photos or from illustrations. So that's a reason I'm with Melanie on this. What about the rest of the committee? Don, how's your feeling? You go for that. So we have the majority. Mary Ann?
My concern is that this is very clear now, with 6 points on one page.
Mm-hmm.
And if you intermix photos, it goes on to several pages. I think the clarity of the.
But we're on this page now. Sorry, that you're on the table of contents, I think, if I just look across the desk.
0.0, that's what we are.
Right, but we're actually on the next page. So we're not talking about illustrating the tables of
There
contents.
you go. So see, it's at the top of the page there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. I agree with you on the point you're making.
So, to be clear, this page stays as it is.
Not necessarily. We're just talking about illustrations today, and we're illustrating the principles starting on,
Page 2.
well, I guess it's page 2, yeah. The non-contents page. So given that, good point about the table of contents page, Marianne, but what do you think? What's your vote for illustrating this in general when it reappears now in the context of the other guidelines?
And then we have another photo at 1.10.
Yeah.
And forest character and landscape design.
Well, there can be photos for every single one if we want. There can be 5 photos for 1 point. There can be 0 photos. I don't think anyone should feel like this is some kind of,
We're not restricted.
yeah, no, this is just what do we think needs illustrating? Yeah.
Yeah, so just, I'm sorry, sometimes I talk really fast, so it's probably my fault. But basically what we're doing is that's why the spreadsheet is written out, literally every numbered section on here. We'd like to go number by number and just ask the question, if there's not a picture right now for that number, should there be one? If there is a picture for that number, is it the right picture? And, or if there is a picture, should it just go away altogether?
I'm unclear now if this is a picture that belongs here or here or here or there.
So,
Or is this what this in the spreadsheet is 1.12 is picture 1? Because the pictures are not numbered, so that's why I don't.
right, it's a good question. So the question was, how do we know what pictures go with which numbers right now? We did our best at the staff level in this spreadsheet that you have in front of you to put what we think the pictures are. And that's why if you see on page 1 in the column left, photo number 1, which would be that first one you're looking at, we believe it was meant to go with 1.1.2. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it doesn't really go with that. But we tried to do our best here because we didn't have numbers when these were pulled over from the full draft. Because remember, this was more of a thought exercise at the time. So, right.
We want to do that. I don't think that this picture illustrates how to replace the tree.
Okay. Well, I think okay. Then let's wait. If it's okay. So the comment was that Marianne doesn't think that the first picture on the page doesn't illustrate guideline 1.1.2, and that may be true, but I think we're still actually on 1.0.0 trying to answer the question of, okay,
Suggestion,
Yeah.
this is pretty constrained.
Yeah.
This would be better, to have it emphasized, take each of the numbered sections, 1.1, 1.2, put one per page of those sections, and then you get multiple photographs. No, we're pretty tied down to 2 photographs for 1.0. But if we had more room, we could have more photographs.
Oh, you're saying that we should have a different paper size?
Right.
Okay.
for the guidelines.
Because this is all going to be online mostly, and I don't know that are you going to provide printed copies if on request, or? Maybe.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, the other good thing about an electronic version is that people can zoom in, they can make the photo any size they want to view it.
11 by 17?
So if I could, I'm just going to throw myself back at this one more time, try my best. So formatting is a great comment. I don't think we're at formatting yet. We really just need to go through and decide these written words if they need a picture or not.
Well, we are, because
Okay.
there can only be 2 pictures and we've got 4 or 5 policies.
Okay.
So if we wanted to have more policies, we can't have it on this sheet, but we could on this sheet.
But that's a secondary.
Yeah.
That's a secondary point. If we decide how many pictures we want, and we want a picture, maybe we can automatically.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think
Don't let the formatting hold you back. If you want 20 pictures on one number, tell us,
Yeah.
and then we'll figure it out. But we just need to get through number by number. And I should say that we do have a hard stop in this room at 4:30 today.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, okay.
All right, we're going to do what we can. Maybe we can get in a groove, maybe we can set some general principles that if we can't get through it all. But one way to, I think, to think about this, here's another thought, is look at the words, 1.0.0, glance over what's kind of close to it now, but don't think too much about that. Just say, what would be nice to see, if anything, at 1.0.0? If one of these seems to meet the bill, fit the bill, then great, we'll put it up there. If not at all, then you just say, I'd like to see a photo that kind of looks like this here, or I'd like to see 0 photos. And we have some votes here for something to illustrate 1.0.0. And we can stop there and just say, let's get something. Or we can say, does anyone have any thoughts of what that should look like? Preserve, restore, and enhance the forest and all improvement projects. So, you know, in my mind, it's pretty much just a forest picture. I don't know, of something beautiful. Nancy?
So there's an image of, up above.
Let's try to pass this around if we can.
There's an image up above the beach that looks at the city, that shows all the great trees, and it shows everything. I would love to contribute that to this as a possibility.
So here's what I would say is that, let's say we acquire that photo, and if Nancy, if you have a version of that or know where to get one, you can upload it or let us know or whatever. And then we test it out at some point. If we love it, that's great. It's a great suggestion, and maybe it's the one, or maybe it's one of 2 or whatever. Okay, so we're talking about an aerial type of view. Okay. So there's a yes, more or less, around the table that we should have something, and now we have a suggestion in particular of what it might be. Let's move on to 1.1.0, get some momentum. Convey forest character in landscape designs. And again, we're in the commercial district right now. Remember that. This is what we're, just for fun. So does anyone have any ideas? Again, could come from this page of the suggestions that are here, could be something else.
Currently no picture, do we need a picture?
Currently-
I think that's the first question.
Currently, nope.
Currently no picture, do we need a picture?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, Melanie wants a picture for convey forest character in landscape designs downtown. So landscape designs downtown, meaning in the public right-of-way mostly, but also courtyards and any kind of private property. Downtown meaning also all the commercial districts, not just the central commercial. Convey forest character. Anyone have any image ideas for that? Or strong feelings?
Other
Not,
feelings.
right, other
We don't need a
feelings,
picture,
right.
anything like that.
The 2 people on the left are talking about the bottom photo as being a good representation of forest character and landscape design. The bottom photo on this page. Anyone from the,
Trees
Are
down.
wood chips still okay?
I think we have some kind of wood chips available, yeah, allowed. So what about the committee here? Anybody feel like 1.2, 1.1.0 is served by this bottom photo on this page?
I think it's good, but I think we need a couple more that speak to more of a unifying theme, not any non-native trees, just pictures of native trees downtown, native vegetation downtown.
Okay, so emphasis on native vegetation. Any other thoughts from the committee here on this one?
I just read through 1.10 and to 1.14,
Mhm.
and I think that maybe it would be most useful to look this as a chapter and say this chapter should be illustrated by several photos, period.
Mhm.
And then the photos should be sourced.
It's a good idea.
You know,
Mhm.
that way, you know, that's all one idea, one principle and one grouping.
Very good.
And then there could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 photos or more photos, but basically a group of pictures that represent what this paragraph 1.0
a section or whatever, yeah. So Mary Ann's comment is that we could look at, because 1.1.0 is basically like a header for the 1.1.1 through 1.1.4. So look at the body of 5 guidelines as one thing that would be represented by one or more pictures.
Yes,
Yeah, okay,
agree with that.
okay. So then maybe that's, we might,
That would be one task
yeah,
for a subcommittee or
okay.
for one
So I
person.
think there may be, that's a good, for these ones, I think that's good. There may be some later, because I was looking at this, thinking this through earlier. There may be some where you need a specific picture to link to a specific guideline. But I think for ones like this, where it's more philosophical, I think that's really, really good approach.
Yeah, I think they refer to many of these individual items
Yeah.
as a group.
So then maybe if we could, anybody have any thoughts about what qualities a picture would need to have? So not specifics, like don't tell me like the specific tree on which corner necessarily, unless you know the tree that you want to have a picture of, that'd be great. But just generally, like what would be the qualities of pictures that would fit into this grouping of guidelines?
The redwoods in front of Jimmel's store. And Jimmel's store has an oak tree in the middle of the courtyard.
Oaks, redwoods, and pines are 3 protected species.
So what I'm hearing there is to get pictures of all of our most important heritage trees. Okay.
And, since there is tree replacement, is a specific point, it would be good to have an image of a row of tree with a little new one planted. I think where on the median or somewhere a tree has been replaced, so.
Yeah, show tree replacement that is appropriate, and then show tree replacement that is not appropriate.
Lollipop trees?
Yeah.
Pictures of lollipop trees?
Yeah.
Well, and here's, by the way, no one said this yet, but we should remind ourselves that we do not want a whole thing of check marks. We want some X's,
Yeah.
because I think X's are very illustrative, they're very helpful. So a bad replacement tree would be very helpful, because people realize it's not just getting a tree in there, you gotta do it a certain way. So think about X's also, not just check marks. And then I would, yes,
There's some key words in the 3 of these here, 1.1.2, and in courtyards. So you need a picture that shows a courtyard, I would think.
mhm,
In 1.1.3, it talks about tree grades. We want to have something that illustrates that.
mhm,
And the last one, 1.1.4, surface plantings. So if you just follow those key words, I think you could.
yeah, I think that's a good point.
Photographer would know what to do.
I was going to make a similar point and also add to what you said. The uniformity of the street trees is also a very specific point in 1.1.3, showing trees staggered rather than lined up.
Uniformly spaced.
Yeah, not uniformly spaced. So that's, I think that's actually another good way to do this with the spreadsheet too, is to sort of maybe highlight or check things on your verbiage that seem like they need either an X or a check. Like if we see a crappy grade out there, maybe that's an X or something. Don't do the grades this way. But yeah, these are the sort of sub-points to Marianne's overall kind of visualizing of 1.1.0.
Maybe I just read ahead, so I think maybe 1.2.0 is a similar candidate for such an approach.
The section?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So these are like subsections. If we say there's a section of 1.0.0, there's no way we're going to illustrate that whole thing in our minds, I think. But if these are subsections, if we take the first layer of subsections, I think that's a good technique.
Okay. Well, I think we got,
Got some
I
stuff?
feel like we got really good feedback on 1.1.0, so let's just ask the same question. Well, I guess just nodding of heads, everyone seems to agree that the approach for 1.2.0 could be the same, where it's a group of pictures. There's maybe not necessarily, like it doesn't say window, or I guess it does say windows. But we don't need like a specific targeted picture. Could we take this same approach for 1.2.0, do people think?
Yeah, and highlight, like Sherry says, just highlight the words
The-
that we need to illustrate within it.
Highlight the keywords, yeah.
Yeah, like on that
Okay.
rainwater retention outside the
Okay.
Public Works building, right?
Well, maybe I think this is the beauty of this super table process, is that I think we're kind of refining how to go through this. So maybe let's go for 1.2.0. What are those highlight words that we think are so important? Feel free to, if there's like, you know the perfect picture in your mind, you've been thinking about it forever, to tell us, but maybe we could just go around the table and see what are those key things we want to make sure that the grouping of pictures captures.
Native plants, sorry.
Native shrubs is right.
And down the tower.
The library front garden is probably a good example.
Flowering plants,
Or just like a planter boxes, yeah.
Rainwater retention would be the planter on the corner.
Mm-hmm. And then the one up at Public Works, they did that demonstration garden, yeah, good.
yeah.
Which one? Oh,
Exterior
Out in
shading,
front.
we should want to show an awning somewhere.
Yeah. The retractable awning.
Which one's that, Neil?
1.2.3,
Awnings
There's
on
some active
stone
daily
fronts.
and interior spaces.
exterior shading devices.
Operable awnings, okay. Mm-hmm.
I don't think we need to illustrate demolition materials.
I mean, I
A
think
few places we can get a nice picture.
if we put, go ahead, no, say it, Marianne.
renewable energy devices, so is there any good solar PV in town?
Mhm.
That's-
Is there anything?
Yeah, there's a couple, I think at least one that I'm aware of, they look more like roof tiles than solar, like those are pretty good. Yeah, the Tesla tiles, yeah. We can show some bad ones too, probably not here, but I can show plenty,
Well,
I like
that,
that idea, Brandon, something that looks good, that really works,
yeah.
fits in.
There's a really great one, I don't know if you guys have seen it, in Pacific Grove along the Scenic Drive. There's one where they set the solar panels down inside flush. It's like they put a tray in the roof and the solar panels are flush with the roof. It looks pretty slick, actually, yeah. Mhm.
Something that says you do it taste.
Yeah.
so the, let's keep our X thoughts here too. So for example, I think the solar collector X would be a good one. If there's a really bad way to put solar or wind on the roof, I think it would be good to show that we don't want that. Even though this is not about the design so much, this is really about making sure, because that comes later. This is just about renewable right now, but still, that might be something to keep in mind,
Mhm.
maybe even for a future, further down in the details, but a future point. Anyone from the committee have any other thoughts about photos for this section? Oh, I was gonna say a big X might be bad plants. I do think if you do, I think it would be good to have like not forest character plants with an X. Yeah. Or not
Liquid
sustainable, not
trees.
sustainable, or things that take a lot of water or have watering devices next to them. We have that in town. We don't want that.
What was that comment about bad solar?
Bad solar. Well, we're just saying that every time we think we could illustrate something with a check, we might also want to be thinking, is there a dangerous thing we could show not to do? So if there's some very, we don't now, we don't have it yet. This is just photo list for the future.
These photos could add a lot to this.
That's why we're doing this meeting, man. It's
Yeah.
important.
Now that I'm hearing this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially showing people what doesn't work or what we don't like, and a lot of them don't know that.
Yeah.
And so the picture's the only thing that's gonna find it.
I have one comment,
Yeah.
general comment about this pictures, right? This is guidelines which is supposed to bring some aesthetics, also directions. I'm looking at those three pictures, right? And the top one looks to me like not very aesthetical, just as a picture. It's cropped, not
Mhm.
nicely. Maybe we need to pay attention to those also, especially if you have a photographer and he knows how to and maybe find replacement with the same subject but better looking. So when you look at it, you have all the motivation to do something better, just not look at the technical, like, not
So
like
inspired.
nicely cropped, exactly. Inspiration even by looking at it.
That's a very good general comment. We really want good like inspirational photos, except for the X ones, yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
So we'll take a note that we don't want pictures of trucks with cones on top of them in our pictures, for example. Okay. Noted. Thank you, Anatoly.
I'd just like to ask you all what you think of picture number 2. The first,
Second one on the page.
yeah. No, I think it's contrary to what we want.
What does it do, what do you not like about it, Melanie?
Well, it's the trees.
The type of trees?
Yeah.
So it should have an X. if
What
it's
is
gonna
it,
be-
Yeah.
what is it about the trees you don't like?
I would rather see natural trees, native trees.
Redwoods, oaks, pines.
Yeah.
It's
And-
just two trees, they're the same.
Yeah, I mean, we don't want, again,
Exactly.
we don't want a lot of non-native trees.
Good
I
point.
mean,
And we don't
Ye-
want this kind of repetition.
right,
Yeah, I don't know.
yeah.
I wonder if it would be helpful at all to maybe start, we're talking about introductory images, or whether or not that would be an issue. If, these are all detailed images, and that's good and helpful to somebody who needs to use this document, but maybe some upfront matter with some more, panoramic photos that are inclusive, so you get the sense of place. In addition to this detail,
Mhm.
maybe there needs to be some balance between detail and larger focus.
So just, I'm not sure what can be heard on the video, but to
I don't think there's
just,
anybody on Zoom,
so-
actually.
oh, but for,
So-
what about for the tape?
We'll have to do our best, yeah.
Okay, well, I just wanted to repeat real quick
Yeah,
that
that's
the,
kind of
the
what-
comment is about maybe some larger, more context-related photos. And are you saying that maybe they should, would they be appropriate to be sort of as headings or subheadings?
Like some
Lead-ins.
lead-ins to your topics.
Lead into the topics, okay.
Yeah, it gives you the sense of the whole city being that way. Isn't that right? It's you get a sense of a couple of blocks that look like this.
Like if this is the commercial zone, maybe the front of this is straight down Ocean.
Mhm.
Or it's down Dolores and then it's down, Monteverde. You get a sense of the sort of expansive, if you like it, if it's what you're going for.
Right.
If there are sections where it's not what you're going for, also helpful. as
Well,
you point out.
Well, so maybe, again, sustainable, which we're on now, sustainability, maybe that's not so related to that, unless there's general photos about that, but maybe the next one, 2.0.0, where we're talking about the relationship of structures to the forest, maybe that's where something like that comes in. Are we clear to move on to the next? Because we just have two subpoints for one.
Yep, I see everybody nodding their heads.
Okay, so now we're on 2.0.0, which is subordinate every built structure to the character of the forest, natural environment, and to the natural features of its own site. The consensus seems to be that we should have something to talk about to illustrate that in general, or to put an X, maybe.
I think, it's good, very good, the point that you've made. And I think we should have something here, again, that gives an overview of the community. And people pick up pretty fast what the problem is. We don't have a lot of native trees. And we have a lot of void spaces where trees have been removed over the years. And so we've got these holes in the ground, and they're also ripe for liability problems. And we don't have a lot of trees. Look at this picture, first picture on this page. If that corresponds to the leading principle, I can't see it. I mean, first of all,
Brandon's guessing probably correctly that this is supposed to be for 2.1.1 or 2.1.0, maybe, follow the
Yeah,
natural
yeah.
contours of the site, because it's a
Yeah.
hillside,
It's a good picture for that.
yeah,
but it doesn't
but then
show
it's
forest.
contrary to what we're saying.
Subordinating.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't subordinate the built environment to the natural environment.
Well, to the topography,
Yes.
but not to the trees.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
But there's no trees, right.
yeah. So we can probably find something a little bit better than
That does
this.
both.
Yeah, that's
That would
all
be nice.
that's my point.
Yeah,
It's not a good,
Don has his.
I may be going back to the previous heading, but a good negative photograph would be some of these lost tree wells,
yes,
and say absolutely not.
yeah, right.
Good. No, that's good. We've got vacant tree wells. That is back.
Preserve, restore, and enhance.
Yeah.
Okay.
find this whole chapter is, may have some problems, this chapter heading for commercial, because the commercial district is so established. It is what it is. I don't know how you subordinate that to the forest. I mean, it's fully developed, really, right? There is no new buildings there, so I'm not quite sure what that chapter heading is supposed to accomplish, really.
And the photographs are largely residential.
Yeah.
You're on the right one? Yeah, commercial photos. So my understanding,
Vagabond house. No, that's the Vagabond house, but I don't think that's the CC district. Perhaps a better photo would be where the Fifth Avenue Deli is. Mature trees.
I actually remember that conversation when we were going through putting these together, that we talked about how, because this is, a lot of the stuff in the commercial district is somewhat replicated from the residential district. And this was pulled over, and I think we talked about this, like, it's definitely not going to apply on as many sites as it does in the residential district. This is going to be when you have the opportunity to subordinate, and maybe that's what we do, is we had, when the opportunity to subordinate to the forest exists in the commercial district, you should, because there are, like Doug pointed out, there are sites where you can subordinate to trees on site, but some of them there's no trees, and there's no room for them.
can I also, we do have a public right-of-way, and again, I think that the general principle that we've been espousing around the table is we're trying to make connections between, wherever it is possible, between vegetation on private land and the vegetation that should be in the public right-of-way. Now, that we have a public right-of-way chapter, we're hoping, and so that will cover that more carefully. But if you have space between your building and the street, which you do because of the sidewalk, at least you have an opportunity to contribute to the forest. Now, maybe that turns out to not be your private. Right, it's maybe not always possible on a commercial site, but it might be. And that's what Brandon's saying. So we will have there is a principle of foresting the commercial district, but not always on private property. It just depends. If you have a lot line to lot line storefront, then you can't. But maybe you can do it with planters. Maybe you can do it with potted plants that are reinforcing the ecosystem. So there's always something you can do, I think.
Let's do, if we can, if you don't mind, let's do the word exercise with the 2.1.0s. So 2.1.1 through 2.1.4. Do we want to gather our important words that we want to illustrate with photographs? I don't know what that would be. Nancy's chime.
So the first one is avoid cutting into the canopy of established trees.
So we can just, people want to throw out words. So canopies are important. What other things are jumping out at people? And I'll just say it into the microphone. Okay. Contours.
And we should have a better picture of that.
So we've got a Fifth Avenue Deli suggestion for replacing this photo.
For following the contours, or
Very good picture for following.
I think so too. Yeah, I think Doug, you were suggesting for the subordinating maybe to the trees. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's for that. Yes, Don has a comment.
I think 2.1.3 is an opportunity for a negative photograph. And what's it called? Doug, what's it called, the place with the massive stuff on the street? Fort something. Fort something, the streets.
Where is it located?
You have a thought, Doug knows what you're talking about, some kind of property in town?
Yes. Commercial property, which has
Big retaining walls and stuff?
big stuff on the street. It was our friend who was complaining about that.
Big stuff on the street, what do you mean stuff?
Retainage
Not
and,
following the contours.
right.
So that would be important to have. So Don you have a thought, but you
I remember we talked about it, somebody raised that point before.
Well, we need to find
Do
an
we know a
example.
street?
Was it David?
No, sorry.
Not you.
I don't remember.
Okay.
Well, we can find
But
it
it's-
we'll
in
find it.
between now
But
and.
no objection to an X for that, it sounds like, around the group. And so, and I would say an X for cutting limbs, if we can see a good situation where someone just lopped to get a, instead of building around the tree, you know, altered the tree.
Follow the PG&E truck.
Yeah, exactly.
Jokers.
I think that could be an X. It seems like we might get a bunch of X's out of this.
Yeah.
Um,
The only reason I say about the first photo is that it's so close to the founding principle that it might cause confusion, someone to say, well, you know, you're talking about this, but then you have this photo here. So can we just look, everybody, can we look for a better photo?
Well, I think,
with trees.
Yeah, with trees.
So a contour photo.
so I think what I would offer to that is, I agree with what Mary Ann said. I think this is actually a really good photo illustrating what it's supposed to be illustrating. I think what you're getting to, Melanie, is just doing a better job of correlating the photos to what they're supposed to be representing.
Right.
Yeah, so that's what, and kind of Doug's point earlier, and we've talked a couple times, that's gonna come through the reformatting of this. We'll make sure that it's obvious where the photos are supposed to be representing, because there's certainly gonna be photos later that wouldn't make sense with these things either. So we'll make sure that they're all together where they're supposed to be.
But there's no reason not to keep our eyeballs out.
Sure, no, absolutely. If there's something better for following the natural contours, then great. Anything else in the 2.1s that
I'm thinking
someone sees a word?
Underground parking structures, some
Okay.
are less obvious than others.
Underground parking structures, certainly,
Looking at
yeah.
others.
That's a good point. So bad parking structures and good parking structures?
Yeah, like Trevitt Court's a really great example of an underground parking structure.
And the shops that are on top of that parking structure at Sixth and San Carlos, you know, what's that, the famous architect, you guys, and builder who did?
McFarland?
Yeah, McFarland, underneath McFarland building.
Sixth and San Carlos.
That would be a
Garage.
very good one.
Yeah. Hardly notice it.
McFarland building.
Sixth and
Oh, I know which one you're talking about. Yeah, it's like it's kind of a Tudory looking, yeah,
west.
yeah. It's right by the bank. Yeah, mm-hmm, yep,
Beautifully,
yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and it has underground parking that's very nicely.
Yeah, and there's a ton in there too. It's a big slab. Okay, that's great.
Is 2.13 really go under 2.01?
2.13.
There's no reference in there to the forest.
Well, it's natural features, which includes topography. So this, are you talking about 2.1.3 right now? Yeah,
The
so,
heading has to do with subordinating structures to the forest.
right, so we,
1.3 doesn't mention the forest at all.
well, it's talking about, it follows from 2.1.2, I think, in the sense that you're trying to leave the topography as you found it, as best you can.
the natural.
And then this is like the negative of that. Don't change the topography so much that you need these kind of revetments and
Like work with what you got.
work with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the 2.1.2 says do this, and then 2.1.3 says don't do the opposite. So that's why I think that's how they got close to each other, I think. That's why they were set up as a pair. Because if you do 2.1.3, you are not following the contours and natural features of the site.
So North Dunes is an example of it done well, right?
Yeah, it would be good to have
Yeah.
that.
Mhm. Okay, do you want to move on to two?
I don't know whether it addresses the fact that the 2.00 says subordinate evergreen structure with care to the forest. This, first of all, question is how applicable is that to the commercial district? And second is that the following points address, do not address the forest.
It doesn't say, it says forest, natural environment, and natural features of the site. So that's why it's all about topography afterwards. So first, we're just on 2.1.0, so that's all about the contours of the site, not the trees.
No, I'm talking,
Oh.
I think we're both talking about the heading.
0.00.
Yeah, so I think that what Marian's saying,
Yeah.
Says subordinate average structure to the character of the forest.
but it includes, so I think what Victoria's saying though is it also, so it's forest, comma, natural environment, comma, and to the natural features. So forest is listed first, but the natural environment and the natural features of the site do include, you know, topography and grading and all that stuff.
This is what I question.
Yeah.
Whether this forest should be dropped here since we have
Mm.
it before anyway, and all the following points only speak to the natural environment and the features of the living else.
Well, there's a canopy here, and actually what you are raising for me is that the canopy piece actually is not about the contours. So 2.1.1 is about the trees and probably needs to be out of the natural contours if that is the subheading we need, because that is not a contour. A tree is not a contour.
Well, I think, but what 2.1.1 is doing, so 2.1.0 is follow the natural contours, and then 2.1.1 is to position the building mass and roof forms while considering the contours of the site to avoid having to cut trees. So it's all related to contours of the site, where you're putting the massing at.
The whole chapter is about site.
It is, yeah.
Design and not the character of the forest. Plenty of other chapters are talking about character of the forest, but this particular chapter really does not.
I'm not sure I'm starting to notice that 2.1.1 may not really be, I mean, I see what you're saying, that you could read it as a contour point, but really it's not. It's about the forest. It's mostly about the forest and leaving the forest intact. You could have a flat site with no contours and you could still sensitively position the building around the trees.
Sure, that's what this is saying, is you
Yeah.
positioning the building.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, so it is about positioning on the contours.
1.1 is very explicit about cutting into canopy of established trees.
Mhm.
We'd like to think we have a canopy of
We'd like to
established
think
trees
we
in the commercial district.
We would like to think that.
So maybe if I could suggest, because I think we could do this for a while, maybe we get back to the photos, and as we put together the photos, we can start to maybe highlight some of these, because the photos might illustrate more of this for us as we go along, like where maybe the words need to change slightly between the residential and commercial.
Well, and I would argue they might have to change in general, and I hate to say that,
Mhm.
but I
That's
think
how-
that because we've
that's
left
how
the
sausage gets made.
photographs as
Yep.
a separate project, it is very possible that as we try to find photographs that meet our needs, we may find, oh, we haven't fully described what we really meant to describe. So I don't want to be too scared of that, although it is a little scary.
Yeah.
Okay, we're moving on. 2.2.
Let's do the 2.2s. So the 2.2s, the main header is minimize the visual impact of surface parking, but it takes us from 2.2.1 to 2.2.3. Are there any buzzwords or things that people see jump out at here that we really should make sure that a photo represents?
Well, location, I think 2.2.1. I've never been happy. I mentioned that a long time ago about this photo. I don't think it gets us where we want to be. And I think we need to find a different photo. Maybe Ian's come up with something, or Eric. But I think this sends the wrong message myself, going by that quite often. You know, that's the one that's down. It's on San Carlos, just before Carrie's Inn. Just on the street.
So-
It's on the corner, northwest corner. And I don't think this is something we want to show to people and say, this is how we'd like it.
My guess, Brandon, about your guess about which photograph this is that this was meant to be about shielding, which is 2.2.3, screening. But if we don't think it's good enough about screening, then we can try to find a better one. Bruno's? Is that an X? Bruno's is an X? That's a good point. Bruno's with an X for not screening.
Good and bad. Yeah, good or bad? I think it's bad.
Doug, Doug is,
Lobos may be a good one, in that it has trees in it.
which one, Carol? Sorry.
Lobos,
Lobos
Yeah.
as a screening.
away, yeah.
Lobos is a plus and Bruno's is a minus for screening, we're saying. This is now 2.2.3. So, and by the way, if we're talking about the forest again and just how it applies, that's the one of this subheading that relates to the forest. This one's about planting, it's about using natural, like a landscape buffer to tie into the forest, although it doesn't say that there, but to shield parking. So that's where the forest comes in again on 2.2.3, but the other ones are about where to locate stuff on the lot. And so the Bruno's example is good because it's in the front and that's not a preferred. Any other thoughts about this subsection of 2.2.0?
Look like it. I'm gonna take the opportunity to move on. So that gets us to 2.3, minimize the visual impacts of architectural lighting. I'm just gonna throw it out there. I think this is a section that's really in need of a lot of X's, just to make it really clear, because I think it's easier to illustrate what we don't want to see
Good, I like
from
it.
lighting. Okay.
And do you have any thoughts, any suggestions?
I'm not gonna do that in public. Thank you.
Okay. All right, it sounds like we have a secret task force on the X's. Anyone in the public who is willing to come forward on X's?
There are several places in town that use neon or fluorescent, I guess it's fluorescent lighting inside that flows out onto the street and looks very cold and unwelcoming.
Dolores between 6th and Ocean on the west side.
Dolores, 6th and Ocean, west side.
Have to go there at nighttime.
Oh, yeah.
You have
Maybe
one, Marianne?
Taurus, corner of Taurus and 10.
Corner of Taurus and 10. Well, but
They
this is
tended to use
commercial.
the light. Oh, that's commercial, sorry.
Do you have any commercial ones?
Sorry, yeah.
But maybe we have to remember that.
I can rattle off a whole
Yeah.
list of streets here.
Yeah.
So,
Right here, right across from City Hall too. There's
Any bright white
Yeah.
lighting.
bright white lights.
those are LEDs
Yeah, I was gonna say
basically.
bright
Yeah.
white.
You-
White just kills it. White light.
Go on out with your smartphones, remember.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't hurt to it doesn't have to be the perfect shot. If you see something and we can just pin where it is, that's a hint.
That's a good
If we
idea.
can't,
Yeah.
if we can't think of it here at the table, like which one was that,
Just be
then,
looking when we drive.
yeah, when you walk
I
around.
think Calvin should just be prescribed in the ordinance. And that would put an end, that would put an end to it. And if you make it prescriptive for replacement also.
That's in the works, yeah?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Okay, Brandon assures us that's in the works. That comment was about designating exactly what Kelvin, what temperature to make the bulbs, and that's a regulatory matter, and Brandon's working on it.
Okay. I think that one is
Okay,
pretty.
moving on. Lots of X's.
Yeah.
Well, we might be a nice check.
Oh, I put some nice ones. Yeah, we don't have all negatives, but
For an X, we could do the Cypress Inn at Christmas.
bah humbug to you too, Doug. Okay, so 3.0, fit every built structure within its neighborhood context. And so we have several here, the 3.1s. This is about locating a new building to reflect established alignment patterns. We've had a lot of conversations about this. So we're talking about height, we're talking about positioning, variation in setbacks, landscaping in the foreground. This has some language specifically about hotels and multi-building units. So what are some key words we see jumping at us here that we want to make sure we illustrate? The two that we have here on the side that appear to line up with 3.1.1 and 3.1.4.
What's that second building down? What is that?
Condominium.
Yeah,
Oh.
it's up on Unipero.
No trees, nothing.
Yeah, so that is some greenery because it's set back, but it's not central core commercial, but certainly not much trees.
Yeah, there's room
for trees.
So we don't like that photo, it sounds like.
No.
And to get back to your exercise, I think all of those points could use
Mhm.
a descriptive image. First descriptive.
All the ones that I said,
All of them, I mean, when I read through the.
like the keywords in each of the, yeah, okay.
Is there anything X-wise that we can do, like, let's say 3.1.1, 3.1.1, convey the height of traditional buildings, new construction by keeping the apparent established by adjacent and nearby buildings. Do we, I mean, we might have examples where that's not working, or that's not happening. Can you think of any?
Carmel Sands Lodge rebuilt, see a good X.
Oh, yes, please,
For height, is that what you're saying?
for everything.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good one to use for all points.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing redeeming about that, nothing.
So this is for sensitivity to adjacencies in general, is what we're saying. Now, one of the problems here that we had talked about a while ago is possibly following the principle of not Xing things that might hurt people's feelings if they're identifiable. If you can zoom in on something that doesn't identify where it is, so, but we could get an, I mean, I'm not trying to diss that idea, I'm not.
No, but where do they do it in Carmel? Everybody knows every X that we have.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But if you're
Okay.
zooming in on somebody's, you know, paving material, nobody's gonna find that,
Doug's gonna know.
Yeah.
Doug, except Doug.
But it's a little bit hard when you're talking about, you know.
Something
height.
contextual.
Yeah, the height of buildings and materials, I mean.
So then my thought would be, just to play this out, if we wanted to come up with an X and we wanted to stick to the principle of not being offensive or mean, then we might want to find something online or some other town or Pacific Grove. Let's diss Pacific Grove or Monterey. Go to Monterey, exactly. No, but just say something that pull something that just says, it's okay there, but it's not okay here, for example.
Unless you can zoom in on something.
Unless you can
where-
zoom
yeah.
to the point where you have deniability.
Yeah, I agree with Mary Ann, though. There's hardly going to be anything we can zoom in on far enough that's going to be useful that you won't be able to tell where it is. I mean, you'd be surprised when we start doing that. Like, you could, just little context clues. You're like, oh, I remember this finish, or like, I've seen that light fixture somewhere. Like, believe me.
Well, they'll find it on AI very easily.
That's right, yeah. You just ask ChatGPT to do it for you.
It's possible that we might be overstating the interest level that was going to go into this. We around the
No,
table might.
this is,
no?
people are going to read this every night
Okay.
around the table.
I'm sleeping with this.
That's right. It'll put you to sleep. Don't worry about that. Yeah.
Complaining in Carmel, I'm sure they'll come right in.
Yeah, I'm not gonna have any trouble getting X's, believe me. It's the check marks.
And what about this beautiful shot of the hotel here on the bottom? Is there anything that, do people like it? Is it useful? Is it, I know this is from the original
I
document.
think it's the best shot of the site was in.
Yeah.
Yeah, but maybe we don't want the best shot.
So this is about landscaping, I think.
Yeah, shooting into the courtyard.
So we believe that one is intended to show 3.1.4 slight setbacks with landscaping.
Yeah, I think that's probably.
I think that's pretty good picture, actually. Yeah.
Okay, so we like that one.
And even, but to the point earlier about, these were photos that weren't necessarily taken by a professional photographer who understands composition and light and all that stuff. So we may just reshoot this one if we can reproduce it. And so I'm not opposed to any of that. But if it's one we like, then that's good to know. Okay, anything else in the threes? The note I took for the 3.1s was basically look at all the keywords that I mentioned. For the negatives, let's try to get them out of town or off the internet or something. And then we tend to like this one that goes already with 3.1.4.
And then we should Photoshop out the vent of the side. If
The
it should
vent?
Be a positive example.
Oh, the vent on Cypress?
Yes.
And what about the top photo? Do folks have any reactions to that? The one on the page, does that, any thoughts, just since it's here?
Looks nice.
It's nice.
What, the first one?
Just, yeah, what could we use it for? Do we like it? Is there anything, I assume this was established alignment patterns, or what are you guessing here? 3. Oh, yeah,
I like the context.
or
statement,
height.
Yeah.
So it could be maybe any of the top 3 here on the page, 3.0, 1.0, 1.1. But do people like this photo, and what is it good for, if anything?
like it or not, it shows established alignment patterns.
Yeah.
So maybe for 3.1.0, potentially.
It also supports 3.1.3 because of the inset
Mm-hmm.
area.
Yes. We can have more than one number in each
Yeah.
one, right?
Okay, great. So then, let's move on to the 3.2s. Clearly identify a primary building entrance. So we've got, looks like just 3 under this one. 3.2.1, 2, 3, and, is that right? 3.2.1. 3.2.3, I guess that we skipped one when we were doing this. But it goes from 3.2.1 to 3.2.3 and 3.2.4, but that's okay, there's 3 of them.
Okay, some numbering, and again, this may be an older.
I think it is, yeah, that's okay. So any thoughts on words? X's?
Entries, look at different entries.
Okay,
One maybe into a courtyard and one on the front.
look at entries on the courtyard in the front, okay.
It says clearly differentiate entrances to upper floor residences from those of commercial
Mm.
storefronts.
Okay,
I'm thinking of the Deerling, whatever it is, building. There's a unit upstairs and the entrance is, I think, in the back courtyard, isn't it?
that's right. Mm-hmm.
Which one are you on, Carol? The 3.2.4?
The last one, yeah. Yeah.
So what we're talking about here?
Just showing an entrance that's totally separate from the downstairs retail space.
That's San Carlos at the Hogsborough.
Yes, yes, that's
Yeah.
what I was thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Carlos at Hogsborough?
Separate entrance, you get
Yeah.
upstairs.
Yeah.
Left and commercial entrance to the right.
And that's actually going to be an important guideline as we move into the next 8 years of developing housing in the city.
Seventh and Dolores.
Beautiful one.
La bicicleta and then the residential
Post office, like
Yeah.
right on the ocean. There's all these older
Mhm.
mission style where you go up a little tiled
Yeah.
that are clearly residential. Those are super
It's
pretty.
the La Rambla,
Maybe.
La Rambla building. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's got all those big tiles.
Yeah, La Rambla is a good example.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
We also have Cypress Inn patio.
Mm-hmm. Yep, the Cypress Inn patio. Mm-hmm. Okay, anything else on 3.2?
I think that we should have an X for anyone, if there is such a facade, if there is yet, I know, I can think of one that's not yet built, where the commercial entrances are not planned to be on the street. But are there any examples now of buildings that could have, yeah?
There's 2.
It says or courtyard in 3.2.
Right, but I think that somewhere in the regulations, well, maybe in the earlier version of commercial guidelines, the preference is that commercial buildings face the street. That's not really clear in 3.2.1
Yeah, it says it.
or courtyard,
Orient the primary entrance to face the street.
or court.
If there's no street frontage, the courtyard.
Oh, I see, it's been fixed.
Mhm.
It's been fixed, okay. But if we do we have any examples in town where there were possibilities of having the building on the street, meaning entrance on the street, and the owner failed to do that, because that would be an X, and I don't know if there are any examples.
All the Pine Inn coffee shop and stuff, that
But that doesn't have the opportunity to be on the street. I guess it could be on the back street, could have been on the back street, but that's almost
would
impossible.
not be a good idea.
No, it wouldn't, in that case.
They have, it's an open, there's a pathway from the street to get to it.
Right.
That's like a defined pathway and,
Right.
It
Yeah.
just shows how you can't always have a road there.
No, you
Right.
can't.
Yeah.
that's why in planning our favorite phrase is, it depends.
Yeah.
I use that all the time.
So So, but no one can think of any examples of a silent building, a building that's occupying commercial street frontage and has no entrance on the street frontage.
No, we can look.
That would be a great X if we have it, but, or actually, that could be an X from another community, right? Where you just have a
Sure.
blank
Yeah, I'm
facade.
sure we can find something somewhere else.
Okay.
Okay. 3.3, we are cruising. Provide outdoor space to enrich the interplay between indoor and outdoor activities and to enhance the pedestrian experience.
I hope people will pipe up if they hate any of the things that are here now, because otherwise these are free game. Like, so the one, just to back up 1 second, they have the recessed storefront here. I think it looks fine as a photo. But if anyone has any objections, this is 3.2.3. Say, get that photo out of there, or whatever you want to
No,
say.
I don't understand, excuse me, 3 and 4. I mean, you know,
Oh, you're on the bottom of the page?
yeah, 3 and 4. I mean,
I think this
I
is
don't see-
plant beds, planters, and planter boxes, is my guess.
okay, then yeah, that's nice. But,
You like
you
this
know,
for that?
Yeah, I think it just speaks more to the fact we need to relate the pictures. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep, good point. Thank you.
But you're okay with those photos as planters and planter boxes and
Yeah,
things?
they're
Okay.
they're not necessarily the best, but, you know, they get the point across.
Okay. That's, okay, 3.4.6. So outdoor spaces in general, any thoughts, things that people really want to show or don't want, I mean, or ideas that we want to say are X's?
I think that, back to the Derling building, whatever it is on Ocean Avenue, it has a wonderful courtyard with, who's the artist of light? Thomas Kincaid in the back there and the chocolate shop. That's really charming in there.
Yeah.
This kind of continues from Piccadilly Park.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the example was the Derling courtyard that goes back to Piccadilly. Yeah, all the way out to the other side when it's all open. Huh.
So the Piccadilly walkway and courtyards.
What about the space, you guys will know this, it's where the old Sierra Club office used to be. You know, it's got the beautiful steps and the wrought iron.
Francis
finish
Whitaker
up.
wrought iron,
Yeah.
and it's the coffee shop
Yeah,
back
and
in.
then you go back, yeah, you've got the
Yeah.
storefronts of retail,
Yeah.
and then you
Lost
go back
Canvas.
there, Las Tiendas, yeah, that's what I
Yeah,
found.
that has, the statue doesn't have it.
Huh?
No, you're thinking of Little Napoli's courtyard, right?
Oh, yeah, I guess I am.
Which is also lovely.
Yeah, I'm a little nappy courtyard.
Okay, so Little Napoli courtyard.
Oh, that's a famous one. I think we should put that in. There's another principle here that we haven't discussed, which is if we can find the iconic best example, I think we should always use,
Mhm.
get that in there.
Yeah.
Like, that's a famous
Yep.
sculpture in there, or a
Yep.
famous historic figure.
I was gonna, just to piggyback on that, I was going to say throughout, maybe this document needs to be peppered with the iconic things that resonate like with everyone.
Mhm.
Like the library, the courtyards, the courtyard buildings, some of the hotels that are, particularly loved and well done. These photos, I know it's not everything, but I'm not getting a good sense of just how beautiful the place is and what the characteristics are, what the true characteristics are.
That's a good point. So and I'm going to do, because I got a message that there are folks listening online now, so I'm just going to do my best to repeat a little bit. So the comment was, we should take a look at those iconic things like the library and some of these courtyards and figure out places to plug those in the guidelines. And I think if we look at what makes those iconic things so iconic, we'll be able to clearly find something in these guidelines that it represents really well.
Yeah, we do at some point a collage
We could?
of all the iconic things that we all recognize.
Yeah,
community
yeah.
recognizes.
Yeah, the comment was we could do a collage, and yes, we could do that if we felt that it wasn't better to pepper them throughout the document and use them as examples of specific guidelines. We could do it as a collage too.
Yeah, so that it's, like it's an overall for everything that we're talking about in, say, 2 or 3 or 4 of these sections.
Maybe a combination where we
Yeah.
use some of them in here, and then we have a
Yeah.
collage of those we didn't use in here.
Yeah.
Yep, so the comment was we might, if we don't use them in the document, maybe we pull them, the ones we didn't use together as a collage.
So I think that for the library right here, just to stay on that topic, it would be apt for the 3.4.4, which is a small park or
Mhm.
plaza in front of that building.
Yep.
If we wanted to use that, and then, yeah, again, folks, I think that if you have favorite spots that capture the essence in a nice way, this is photo snap, don't worry about the quality of the snap, and upload and maybe label the file so we know where it is, so the photographer knows where it is.
Can you tell us where to do that?
Yeah, it's called steeringcommittee.universe.
And if you go, so the question was, can you tell people where to go to find this Dropbox? And if you go to the agenda for today's meeting online on the city's website, at the very bottom, there's always a link there to the meeting materials and the steering committee website, so you can get there at the bottom of today's agenda on the city's website. Yeah, you're welcome.
What's this third picture down on this? What is that? That doesn't look like commercial.
That's the high end.
Oh, that's the high end?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, to the restaurant, yeah.
Oh, yes, okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Okay, anything else in the, yeah, Carol, you don't know about the Darling Courtyard and the Pine Inn?
Welcome to Carmel,
Yeah.
Carol. So wait, 3.4.4 could also be 3.4.7, the civic.
Yeah,
So-
yeah.
So, Brandon, I'm not a big fan of this, the one courtyard picture, the second one down on this page.
Okay.
I think there are others that are far more charming, whether it's the one around the seating areas around grazings, the outdoor seating areas, that's, I think, gorgeous. Also, of course, Anton Michel's courtyard is also gorgeous, you know, as another more open area
And that
example.
sushi, yeah, on Dolores, that sushi place that used to be
Toro.
Emily's.
The Toro.
No, that's on-
There.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some that are just far
Yeah,
more
I agree. This
attractive
one
than
is not.
this.
Okay, so the comment was that the photograph that shows the courtyard where I believe like Cultura, the restaurant, is back there, as maybe not the best it's not a bad courtyard, but just maybe not the best representation.
Yes.
Okay, needs people, that's right.
I
Yeah.
actually think that this discussion we're having now about what are the best things in town that we can represent applies so well to the courtyard thing. I think
Mhm.
that you could make this whole courtyard section about our best courtyards and just figure out which ones they correspond to, and that's it. I think there's probably nothing we're gonna come across that's more applicable to what is the best
Yeah.
spaces than this courtyard section. So I again encourage folks, if you have a favorite spot.
I agree.
That's great. Okay, Neil?
Forest
Yeah.
in the Forest, I guess that's 2 restaurant, to be considered courtyard. So there's a wonderful outdoor space.
Yeah, that's not a public courtyard though. You have to be dining there to enjoy that, so yeah, I don't think we would use that one. Okay, that's the 3.4s unless anyone wants to comment anymore.
What about the committee here? Any thoughts from the committee? You like what you're hearing?
Any words that jump out at you, like, oh, we gotta find a picture that represents this word? I know Doug, we've had a lot of conversations about forecourts and like what that looks like, so maybe that's something we wanna try to get a good picture of to represent what we mean when we're saying forecourt, because that definition, I think, has been difficult for all of us to land on. What do you think? Yeah.
What is it? I mean, what is forecourt?
It's like a
What
break,
is a
it's like a
forecourt?
break in the street wall where like you're going along a kind of fairly
So
regular,
just the inset.
and then there's an
Mhm.
inset that's
Okay, all right,
basically
cool.
still kind of a
Yes.
patio or court, but it's basically just a recess in the building.
And if you had a picture of it,
Yeah.
you wouldn't have to ask that question.
Yeah, there you
Yeah.
go. Okay, labeled it with the
Yep.
word forecourt.
What the heck is a forecourt?
This first one does that on this page.
Well, that might be why it's there, but it might not be good enough.
It kind of does, yeah.
It's recessed from the sidewalk
Yeah,
and creates
yeah.
court.
Well, no, I think that's too small. That's
Mhm.
my sense. That is not a
Okay.
forecourt. I think this is a recessed retail entry, and then the forecourt is somewhere between that and an interior courtyard. So we do have to illustrate it clearly, since we don't know.
Yeah.
There's a forecourt in front of the American Legion, but it's not aesthetically beautiful.
It's going to be.
Good example of a forecourt.
That's a, yeah, the American Legion is an example. That's a good example. Okay, anything else on 3.4 from the committee or the community?
It's a typo. It's like main paragraph is 3.0 and all the sub paragraphs are 3.4.
Yeah, I think it's a typo. Thank you, yeah.
So we don't have one of them, either 3.4 or 3.3.
This is such an old draft.
Yeah.
I think it's probably corrected.
I think we've corrected it in the most recent version, but the wording's probably very close. Yeah.
I happened to look here from before, Brandon.
Yeah.
On 3.3.2 about interior courtyards, I had a note I wrote that says, add no gates. Is that, does that?
3.4.2 on.
It was a gate discussion whether a private developer can close the gate in the evening
Mhm.
for the residential apartments that may be upstairs. That
Yep.
was the discussion. But for commercial.
No, we don't, Doug. You can, but they have to be open. Yeah, not all the time. That's what we talked about. That was the discussion we had, is if we're gonna make regulations about that, it's gonna have to go in the zoning code, not the design guidelines. Yeah, yep, you're welcome. Okay, how about 3.5s? So that takes us to minimizing negative conflicts with abutting uses. If only there was a picture to show you what that meant.
So just so you know, this is a little bit reworked wording-wise. The first one is now a little shorter. It's just fully integrate service areas and equipment into the design of the building. It'd be really nice if we had a photo of that, a beautifully integrated design, like where the services actually are part of the design or invisible because of that.
Rather than go on top of the roof and then have a little.
And that could be an X. There are going to be a lot of X's for this area, right? And here's a situation where I wouldn't feel guilty about Xing somebody's,
We can't.
what? But this is already that. This has already been in there like that. If somebody isn't shielding their equipment, it's not a criticism of their building. It's,
not that it's shielded.
Shielded equipment that's bigger than the roof in
Yeah.
a new building in town. So
okay. I
I
think
don't know how that happened.
I would not feel bad about showing that as an X.
So, what is that?
Let's not devolve. Come on, guys, we're doing good. We're doing good here. We're doing real good. Let's keep it on track.
And then 3.5.2 now says, in cases where full architectural integration is not possible, eliminate the impacts of utilities by using low-profile, recessed mechanical units, grouping, screening, et cetera. I'm not going to read it verbatim, but it basically goes from fully integrated, please, to if you cannot do that, maybe it's a renovation, then do it, at least integrate it with screens and color and shielding and landscape and things
I
like
think
that.
you should assign Doug to these pictures. He should be.
Yeah, that's true.
Doug should be in charge.
Are you in charge of these?
I can give you a whole photo gallery.
I just have to go to my email, man.
Yeah, but how do you do that? Because when it's well integrated, you don't see it.
Yeah.
Well, we have Luca.
I have some good examples that I've kept. So like a really good example is Luca. So in their front of their building, they built out an architectural wall that has the huge fire stanchion pipe inside of it, and there's doors that you can open. And so there are ways to do it. It just takes a little bit of extra thinking and pre-planning. But unfortunately, not to say that everything that's out there is great, but some of these property owners and developers, they do get stuck with things last minute after the design's already been approved and they've been entitled, and a PG&E or a CalAm will show up and say, oh, by the way, we've just changed the requirement. You have to do this thing. So we try to be sensitive to that as well, but maybe we figure out ways to do it better. I don't know, but.
Proactively call PG&E.
Yeah, and I think that that's part of it too, and that's one of the reasons if we have it in the design guidelines up front as they're designing their project, it's going to call attention to it, and they can make those proactive phone calls and say, okay, what are you going to do to me when I call for service to do the connection?
Equipment that's gigantic.
Right.
And goes on a roof has nothing to do with it.
Agreed. That's all private. You're right. Absolutely.
Garbage can condos are also part of this?
Yeah.
Something to hide the garbage cans?
So this is commercial.
But yeah, I mean, garbage cans apply.
But we're not having people build things for garbage cans in the commercial district. They just go back into their building.
They don't show
Yeah,
except on garbage day.
yeah.
So, Doug, you want to be?
I was just kidding. Well, I mean, Doug has pictures for sure. We'll work with the same photography team to do all of them, but Doug's gonna have some great places for us to go shoot. The joke was between Doug and I. We've been fighting this battle together for the time that I've been here for the last 3 years.
Pictures, his computer will crash.
Yeah. It was my second day on the job. I think Doug sent me an email. So, welcome to the city. I'm Doug. Here's a picture of something.
All right, well, this is, I think there's a lot of X's. I don't know, are you disagreeing, Brandon, with my thought that if it's a piece of equipment that is poorly screened, not a criticism of the building, that it's okay to show a badly done, I mean, I don't.
Yeah, I'm just worried if we're gonna take the approach of not singling out property owners for being, bad guys or bad girls. I think we can hold that true in all of them. I could guarantee you we can go to another city and get a picture of ugly stuff on a roof.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you can crop it such that it's covering just the space of the ugliness.
Yeah.
So that it's not explicitly exposing the.
Yeah, because one of the things about having to crop, like let's take a big service hood on top of a restaurant. One of the things about cropping that down so far that all you see is the hood, then you kind of lose the scale of why it's so bad.
True.
So you kind of do have to show the whole building. Yeah, because you could be taking a picture of something that's only 2 inches tall when you crop it down that big, versus 3 feet maybe. Yeah.
That means we're going out of town
Yep.
for those.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, 3.5, anything else? So we've got our security devices, building equipment.
This is a very lovely building where this comes from. Why is that so bad, that iron grate there?
They're supposed to be located on the interior, not the exterior.
Yeah, but it fits the building in this case, and I don't have any idea why that's supposed to be done. I think it's a building on 8th Street.
It's Red Eagle Alley.
Yeah, so the
Eagle Alley,
the guideline is to minimize, so the question was, why is the picture that has like basically jail bars on the outside of the window, why is that bad? And I didn't mean that in a bad way, because sometimes Mary Ann's right, it is appropriate for the style of the building. But the guideline that was written says minimize the visual impact of security devices on windows and storefronts by locating them on the interior rather than the exterior. So that's why it's an X. I mean, this one may be an exception because of the architecture or the historical nature. I don't know, but
If it was on a bank, it's on a bank or something, but I just think that we shouldn't be, promoting bars on things.
I mean, you
In
could,
the exterior.
you could argue that it's because it's nice that it's a good example, because even though it's nice as architecture, we still are not trying to promote even architecturally integrated nice. This is what this says, is do not do this, period.
There's just older, if you go throughout town, there's several old traditional buildings that have really beautiful ironwork, and I don't think that's a problem. I don't know why this is even in here, this 3.5.
Maybe if it's controversial, we should just eliminate that picture.
Well, let me ask you this, Marion, would you want someone to build a new building in an old style with bars on the windows?
Yeah, but it's a nice nice ironwork. Ironwork is very much linked to the tradition of the town and the peninsula.
But ironwork as a security device in particular. So this is, I think what the group decided, or somebody decided, this could be Nori language, I don't know where it came from, I think it's just original language. The proposal from a regulatory guideline standpoint is we're not going to encourage security measures at all in the future. That doesn't mean people have to rip them out. But that's why I'm just saying, sometimes maybe it's good to show an example that we would like, actually, but architecturally like. But if the point the community wants to make is, we don't want to do that anymore, please hide it completely, hide it on the inside. If that's the point we're trying to make, then it's okay to use a pretty example. I'm just throwing that out there because it teases out, are we saying we don't want any security look? Or are we saying, no, there's discretion, if somebody comes with a new building with beautiful jail bars, then we're good? And I think,
For some reason in my head is beautiful Spanish designs, wrought iron, old world, and they put elements of wrought iron around the windows.
So we may want to just put a pin in this guideline and come back to it and say, somehow incorporate, architecturally appropriate. Wrought iron and steel is okay, but if it's solely for the purpose of like security, then no. But let's put a pin in that guideline and come back to it.
I don't think this particular picture is great.
Well, it definitely illustrates what the language says, but I think we're having a debate more about the content of the guideline versus the picture.
and this is an example of where a photo is
Mhm.
generating a discussion
Exactly.
about the appropriateness of the thing.
Yep.
And maybe we love the thing as it's written now, or maybe it's a policy that
Mm-hmm.
needs addressing.
Yeah, it's great. Okay, should we move on to the 4.0s? Okay, 4.0, big header. Retain and build upon Carmel's established architectural heritage, and that takes us right into the 4.1s, which is preserve historic and existing resources. So we're reusing, we're respecting adjacent buildings, talking about incentives. I think we might have gotten rid of that. Historic significance. So this might be one of those sections where we're not going to have as much, like the courtyard conversation. We can think of a million different examples of what kind of pictures we'd want. I don't know if there's a lot here to represent photographically necessarily.
This is kind of in the courtyard discussion, where if we see something beautiful,
Yeah, we want to highlight.
we would probably just, we have our star list.
Yeah. But are there any, from the exercise of trying to find like key words that we want to highlight with a photo, does anyone see any words or concepts here that are jumping off the page at them that we must have a picture of to represent?
It would be great to have an X for 4.1.2 of, again, for maybe another place, another town, where something insensitive was put next to a historic resource. I bet we can find that, where you have a very beautiful preservation-worthy building that something else is insensitively abutting. I think that would be a good X.
We've got examples of that in town.
There's lots of those.
Or in town.
But we're trying not to offend.
So it's about, I'm plugging an X for adjacencies that are insensitive.
Right,
Seventh and Dolores proposal.
I was waiting who was going to do that.
Terrible
Okay.
combination.
Anybody else? Okay.
Are we still on?
4.1. Yeah, the 4.1s. As I suspected, I thought it was a pretty short one. 4.2s continue Carmel's tradition of diversity in architectural styles. So we've got 4.2.1 through 0.4. Anything here jumping off of people's pages, Adam?
Could you explain 4.2.4? Do not use designs that resemble those in speculative developments. What does that mean?
4.2, where are we now?
4.2.4.
So, okay. Yeah, I think this is a spec house, sort of spec McMansion strip mall, anything where you don't know the tenants ahead of time, you're just speculating, you're developing property, like big box properties, et cetera.
We don't have big box in town, but we want developers to do good things in town, so I don't think there is an overarching design style for speculative developments.
Yeah, I don't know, this is resemble speculative developments. I mean, is there better wording for that? I mean, this is not what we're working on right now, but is there something that captures this sentiment?
At one point, didn't we have McMansion?
But this is that was in the residential.
So where this,
We want developers.
yeah, where this came from was, we've had a couple of conversations around this table about like some of the South and South Bay area cities that have money that get a lot of development, and you kind of just can tell that it's been developed by a singular developer. That was the spirit of what this was trying to accomplish. Maybe the words didn't get there. So we could maybe put a pin in that one again to come back and refine that language. But I do remember specifically that's what this was about, was to not to do like fake re-representations of styles to I don't know.
Maybe it's handled already in 4.2.1.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if the older version, okay, here, let me read to you what we have now, and maybe we forgot to take out the final one. Currently, it reads, to avoid uniformity and the appearance of speculative development and to promote individual artistic expression, comma, differentiate a new building's plan, massing, and overall design from that of nearby and abutting buildings. So that was a criticism or a fix of, again, remember, Marianne, you point out, I think we combined 4.2.1 and 4.2.4 a while ago, and maybe we should have removed 4.2.4. We might not need it.
I think that's right. I think 4.2.4 can just go away.
To the new wording, does
Yeah.
that make sense to you,
Yeah.
Marianne?
I still do not know what the appearance of speculative development is. I don't think there, I think especially in the commercial district, you want good developers, and those developments are
Might be
always
speculative.
speculative.
Mhm.
So, I don't think one should cast sort of a bad light on people who come into town that are
That's a good point.
developers,
Yeah.
you know?
So the
So
It's
I
an
don't think
appearance. It's
speculative is not
necessarily bad.
is not bad, you know?
everything's done for speculation. You're trying to make money. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So the comment was we maybe should consider not using the word speculative development because we want people to come and speculate and do it well and do it within the guidelines that we've written for them. So.
But I thought you just said that you were totally eliminating 4.2.4.
But
Yes.
but the new language still uses that word speculative that we had brought to a revised version. So
Just eliminate 4.2.4.
yeah.
Right,
That's-
I think it's supposed to be eliminated.
Yeah.
But again, what we're talking about is individuality, craftedness, that kind of thing.
It should say all that.
And it does.
And it
say
does
that
in the new
the
version.
new
Yeah.
version.
So
The question is the word speculative and whether we can, now here's a good opportunity for X's, I think, because if you can't quite capture what you're trying to say with the word speculative, and you can just throw up some
right.
strip malls and some,
Yeah, but why don't we just have a whole bunch of good examples?
Yeah.
I don't think we need anything negative here, because what we wanna promote is good, is, you know, good design. Yeah, that's not uniform, and that promotes individual artistic expression.
potentially over a larger lot. That's the thing that's
Exactly, yeah,
that's
yeah.
at issue.
And you can't belittle, you know.
Does anyone have any examples of that are in town of a larger development? And I think for me, what pops to mind is the older stuff, where a larger collection of storefronts might be subsumed into a collection of smaller storefronts might be subsumed into a larger building artfully. We have a lot of examples of larger buildings like that. We could use those as examples, but in town, I don't know what we have that's larger development now that has been built that actually, but we can use older examples, or do you have any that
Yeah,
come
I
to
mean,
mind?
the Bukaslo Eastwood building, for example, I think does fit into the law,
Mhm.
right? So that could maybe be used as a decent example.
So the example was the Eastwood building. Okay.
Any other thoughts from the group of like, again, a kind of larger building that doesn't look like, what I consider spec, strip mall-y, but has a number of subordinate commercial units or retail spots, but is a larger development that works as an artistic, individualistic expression. I think there's a number of 1930s type, mission style
I mean,
stuff.
the Dowd Arcade is kind of an example of that. I mean, it goes around the corner and it's got different entrances and different storefronts.
Yeah, agreed.
And down on Lincoln, the whole Bayview corner, that was all done at once, where the cigar shop is.
Oh, down the corner of, on the corner of Lincoln. Yeah, okay. Okay, so the comment on the 4.2 section is, let's try to give some really clear, good examples of what we're talking about with the development, and maybe a couple of bad ones of what we're trying to express with that word, speculative, but we're gonna probably put a pin in that and come back to it, and maybe just take that word out altogether, and rather use our words to explain what we mean by speculative, words and pictures.
Pictures,
Yeah.
Just so I'm clear, are we getting rid of 4.2.4?
Well, you're on an old version, Melanie, so
Yeah.
this
Can we
is,
can we get it, can you email that to me?
it's all, you have it.
Yeah,
You just
you have
don't
that.
have it here.
We printed the wrong one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you have it probably in your bag. You probably have it in your pile.
We're gonna need to get together and do like the culmination of everything.
Okay.
Between the two of us, we have the final version, or the current version.
But that's also always online on the steering committee.universe. You also have had it printed out at earlier meetings for sure. It's back from May, so we've all been using it. Mary Ann brought it today. Don has his hand up.
I printed the wrong one for everyone.
Okay.
I'm a little scared of 4.2.1, which carries to a logical conclusion, might produce clashing, incompatible designs. Look up at 4.1.2, respect adjacent historic resources. We're serving, isn't that, it doesn't say architecture that's compatible or sympathetic to or something, anyway.
So you're saying, Don, you want to...
It does actually, you have the wrong, in the new version, there is a new item 4.1.3 where it says respect adjacent historic resources with compatible architectural design.
Oh, absolutely. That's
Yeah,
the one.
it's here, yeah, that's, sorry, you
Okay,
don't,
I'm sorry.
it's actually been.
4.2.1 then, what does it say now?
So first, just to clarify what Don is saying, he was worried that we're just talking about what not to do in just one back in 4.1.0, but we do now in the current version from May have a line 4.1.3, respect adjacent historic resources with compatible architectural design. It would be nice to have good pluses for that, check marks. But then the other issue that we've been debating now is how to get rid of the word speculative maybe, and how to illustrate good spec and bad spec development. And that is, the current wording for 4.2.1 is to avoid uniformity and the appearance of speculative development, whatever that means, and to promote individual artistic expression, comma, differentiate a new building's plan, massing, and overall design from that of nearby and abutting buildings.
I would take nearby and out, because there are lots of mission-style buildings in town, and they're all nearby each other.
True, everything's nearby. You could argue you can't even say nearby in town at all.
Yeah.
Everything's nearby.
Dolores is a great example.
So maybe abutting buildings, we want to have some variation,
Mm-hmm.
but nearby.
Well, if I could suggest, let's hold off on changing language, because we owe the group like a sort of like the culmination of all these drafts. So if that's okay, and then we'll drop it on everybody, and we can do like a last call through on the language, because I'm taking.
With photos.
Agreed.
With good photos.
Yeah, because I think they'll reveal a lot to us. I'm taking notes of where we've pinned to come back on some of this language. Okay, so that's the 4.2s. How about the 4.3s, which are using traditional natural building materials? This is one that's definitely want for a lot of pictures. So we've got 4.3.1 through 0.5. So we've got 5 different ones here.
I love that house.
6, actually.
Thank you, yeah, 6.
Yeah,
Oh, you're right.
it shouldn't be,
It's a residence.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so the comment was the picture of the house is actually a residential picture, so we should not use that
Are
one.
you sure it isn't one part of it an office?
Which one you?
No, that's a house.
The middle one on the page with the
Is
shingles.
that escargot? Is that escargot?
I don't think so. Yeah,
Just north of St.
yeah.
You do get around.
You should go with him sometime, Carol.
You got 5 days in a row?
Yeah. All right, any words jumping off or things that we want to make sure we get really good pictures of? I mean, I think that if I was just going to offer something up, I think, we've got all of these materials listed in here. I think we should probably try to represent as many of them as we can.
Yeah.
Okay.
Silver Arts building is the best building in town, which incorporates almost everything we're talking about. It doesn't have a check.
Well, it's not here. Where is it?
It is here. It just doesn't have a check mark on it.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I'm on the
It's
wrong
just missing a check. It doesn't have an X either. To Don's point, it doesn't have an X either.
Oh, I see. I see.
I know we talked about the pictures, but I just noticed 4.3.5, use metal or unclad wood windows. If you allow for metal windows, why do you not allow for metal clad wood windows?
We actually changed that too.
It
Yeah.
now says, use unclad wood, solid metal, or recyclable aluminum-clad wood windows, doors, and garage
Yeah.
doors with no vinyl or plastic elements.
Yep. Sorry again. That's my
Yeah,
fault
this
for
was-
printing the
yeah,
wrong
that-
one.
In May it got fixed, or
Yep.
somewhere before that.
We should put a picture of the library in here.
Okay. Doug suggests a picture of the library. Mm-hmm.
Wood, stucco, wrought iron, stone garden wall.
I think it'd be nice to have a big X through a cruddy window also.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd have to try to get a
What
commercial
about
version.
fake windows on a building? Yeah. Is that what you're thinking?
Is that here yet? I don't know if
No.
we're here at that point. But I have one in mind.
Yeah, and I think this is an example as we're going through and kind of developing what this is going to look like and formatting. I can see this section being a lot of pictures because it's so important to visually represent these things where, 2 sections ago, we only really needed like 1 or 2 pictures. So this one seems like a really good candidate.
And
Because I think
also-
people are going to have, sorry,
No, go ahead.
Victoria. I think people are, if we're asking people to send us pictures of what they love and favorite things, I think that people are going to have a lot of favorite things here as well.
I also think we do have a placeholder in the sandwich for preferred materials as an expanded part of the appendix. So if it gets too much, we can also add in the back or have multiple examples in the back. The other thing I'll say is I think this is also good place, maybe again in the back or in here for X's. Like if you're gonna show mirrored or a commercial storefront that would work elsewhere but won't work here, I think you can pull an example from somewhere else. Go ahead.
On the preferred materials, Frank, you had called and
Yeah,
wanted, and we want to address that, what it is that you're looking for.
Well, I think we probably shouldn't do it today just because of the working on the photographs, but you and I can talk about it.
Well, do you want to maybe put it on the agenda? I know maybe we should have done that earlier.
Yeah, you just can't do it today, but yeah, we can get it on an agenda, for sure. But yeah, I just don't want to
You don't want
go
to
off.
explain what it is?
Well, no, we've talked about it a lot at the
I see.
meetings, just about
Okay.
having, thinking that we could, and Brandon made it clear that it can't be like something that makes a project sail through, but a sort of set of materials, both natural landscape materials and building materials that would be seen as favorable in front of the review process. That doesn't mean it's an automatic green light, but just to help people along. If you build a full wood building, you're very likely to have an easier time of it. So,
And is this something that would be pictorial as part
It
of
could
the
be,
design guidelines?
for
Or
sure.
How would this have tied into here, since we're talking materials?
yeah, no, that's what I was just saying, that in the appendix, if this becomes very unwieldy, and even if it doesn't, you can take repetitive examples that would normally be in this section and just put them in the preferred materials appendix area. So,
Is that?
It just reinforces.
it reinforces, it gives more examples, you can do X's and checks, but this is a whole discussion on materials, which we had thought early on in this process could have its own place in the appendix too, not just here, because it is a big topic, and also I think if it's in an appendix, it helps for revisions in the future. If a new material comes up that's fabulous and you really want to encourage it, it could be added to the preferred materials list in the back, without having to rework all the words or whatever, so.
Do you want to refer to this materials list somewhere here in this chapter, or how does?
It
how do
is
the
referred
things
to,
linked?
yes, it's referred to by, I don't know if it's showing up here, yeah. So anytime you see an underline, it's representing a placeholder for a hyperlink. In this case, it's a hyperlink to the appendix.
I see, okay.
So I added just, you know, for future, we'll talk about materials, preferred materials list in the appendix, so. Okay, getting back to 4.3, we talked about, you know, just looking at as many of the words here for the materials, you know, shakes, stucco, wood, concrete, giving good examples, bad examples. Anything else jumping off the page at everyone that we need to make sure is covered, or favorites that you know right off the top of your head? Okay, move on then.
Just real quick, possibly the Michael Bolton building, what is that, Mission 6? Use a lot of rock and wood carving and stuff like that. It's very
Mission
full of
6?
craftsman like materials.
Oh, that's one we were talking about
Yeah,
earlier, the
Mc-
McFarland
McFarland
building.
building.
Yeah.
Okay, the suggestion was Mission and 6th, the McFarland building.
Carlos and Sixth.
Oh, it's St. Carlos?
McFarland building. Oh, now I know which one you're talking about. Yeah, okay. All right, so let's move on to 4.4. Use man-made materials according to traditional natural principles, and this may have changed since we last spoke to. Use manufactured materials,
we
yep,
now call it.
yep.
Um,
So this seems to, like, this can be treated, my suggestion would be this can be treated almost identically to the previous section where we're talking about preferred materials. Let's just get good examples and bad examples of the stuff we're talking about. Does anybody feel differently on that one? Any hot or really bad ones off people's head?
I hate to bring it up, but the wall that has been so controversial at Seven Arts, the wall at Seven Arts building where you, Seventh and Dolores, oh, sorry, Seventh and Dolores, what I meant.
Because that actually is different.
It is very different. I meant Seventh and Dolores, where the pebbles are hand placed, and that's an artistic expression of concrete in a handcrafted way. So I think that's a very good example. I know there are a lot of examples like that around town. I've seen them on the.
Very controversial one.
Well, the artistry is not controversial, so that I think we're okay
Or the
with.
Shell Station, we can say.
Shell Station is a good one.
Yeah,
So, yeah, I mean,
also the same guy.
what we do with it might be controversial, but the fact that it's artistically done concrete, I don't think is in
Well,
doubt.
the Shell station should be a photograph of that in this commercial area.
Yeah,
Yep,
that's a good,
yep.
just a good.
The suggestion was that the Shell Station should be a photograph, and I think everyone said yes on that.
For the whole section, you mean, for the whole commercial, somewhere in commercial, maybe zoomed in for the material and other examples.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue that, you know, a gas station, which is like one of the most intense commercial uses you can have, that's also artistic. Like, you can't really get much more Carmel-by-the-Sea than that.
Yeah.
Okay, that gets us through the 4.4s, and we are venturing into the 5s now. 5.1 or 5.0, the big header is design every built structure with modesty and restraint.
It just has modesty now, doesn't it?
Okay, sorry, I think we were probably right. And then 5.1.0, restrain building forms, materials, and details. And all the 5.1s, there follow below it. And in your matrix, as you're following along, I'm sorry, the first one says 5.5.0, but that's actually 5.0.0. So what do we think here? We've got any buzzwords, keywords? It looks like we got a big picture of Cyprus here. A nice corner photo there. We've got the Hoff's house.
Well, the fake mansard or other roof forms that appear tacked on, we could show something there. X.
As an X.
Okay, X's of fake mansard roofs or roofs that are tacked on.
But we have a lot of those on Ocean.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot tacked on, I mean, right, the one.
That are kind of like eaves,
Exactly, yeah,
almost eaves,
Yeah,
and those
yeah.
are wonderful.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly,
So,
Yeah, maybe
I
we
like
should change
those.
the wording then, yeah.
So some of these things we've got here is, you know, it says avoid visual complexity, busy building forms. I mean, we can show that one's easier to, I think, illustrate with an X, so we can find something that's really busy.
Yeah, that definitely needs an X, not a check.
It's gonna get changed anyway. I would think that we shouldn't include the Haas's house, only because it is this side of being redone, and for that reason alone.
Okay. Suggestion, it has not been decided yet. Yeah, one of the suggestions was to maybe not use the Hoff's house, because they are exploring a project there right now.
So this is a similar question in my mind to an earlier one that we're trying to figure out how to represent speculative development and whatever that means. But larger developed properties that show a consistency, or it doesn't have to be larger, but that just projects in general that show a full integration of the architectural language. I would imagine it would be nice to have them actually at different scales, have a small ones that's easy to find a little one here or there that's consistent, like even the candy shop or whatever. But then also showing that that concept scales up to a project like this corner. La Playa.
Mhm. Yeah, that'd be like your
I like
your
the
big
idea
boy.
of showing
Yeah.
small and large, yeah.
Mhm.
And then, yeah, candy shops.
Yeah, Pine Inn.
Yeah, Pine Inn, yeah. Good thing about Pine Inn is that it's got commercial and hotel in it. It's a good combo.
And it's also not
Yeah.
mission style, which is
Mhm.
gonna be,
Yes.
we have a lot of mission
Yes.
style examples, but we need to mix it up a little. Which is, I think, probably how
Yeah.
this Hoffa house ended up in here, because it is a large building that's not mission style.
Yeah, so the comment was Pine Inn is a good example of that because it's not necessarily mission style and it has commercial
Commercial in addition to hotel.
in addition to hotel. You mean like retail?
Yes.
Yeah, retail and
Yeah,
hotel, yeah, because hotel's commercial too, yeah.
Same.
Yep.
Yeah, right. Stand corrected.
You know, I mean, I think when you show, like we can debate the mansard thing, but the main principle in 5.1.5 is a roof form that's consistent with the style of the building. And so we could find examples, again, outside of town where it's not. I think that would be useful, where you get a roof that just doesn't, there's certainly a lot of that around that don't work with their architecture.
Examples of where the roof is different than the architectural
Yeah.
style, okay.
Yeah, and I think the fake or mansard or other roof forms that appear tacked on is different than a false front from a Pioneer Day or something like that. And I don't know which ones you guys are referring to, but
Building just north of the fire, or just east of the fire station has a tacked on mansard roof.
east of the fire station. Which one
There-
is
there
it?
are quite a shell- quite a
Oh,
few
with the
that
shells
show
painted.
a few in
There's
town.
the gallery
There's really
there,
a
and now
lot
it's
of-
empty, there's a planter in front of it.
Yeah.
Oh,
We
it's
have
like
a lot
black.
of those.
Is it the one with like the black,
Town was developed
painted black?
with False fronts
It's,
from the very
brick.
beginning.
It's brick in front, it's going to be redone.
Right, but it's got a.
Hmm.
But I mean, a town that has so many of those things and then writing it in the design guidelines that we shouldn't do it is kind of,
Well, it just depends, if that's what you want to continue in the future,
Right.
you know, I mean, you have to make a decision. So if with new construction or a remodel, you need to have some guidance. Do we think that it should be continued like it is right now, or do we think we need a different look or approach?
I think generally that's not desirable architecturally, but it is part of this town. And when you don't do that, you get these blank facades that actually nobody wants in town. So therefore, by writing that out of the design guidelines explicitly, you actually eliminating
No,
a point that has become a character of the town, you know, despite it's not something that you would learn to do in an architectural school, so.
But roof forms that appear tacked on, like even those Pioneer photos of the false front,
Yeah,
the idea was that they're wall to wall and that you don't see that they're
Yeah.
tacked on.
Yeah.
So I think this is all about appearance, and it's kind of hard, maybe this is too subtly
Maybe
written.
we should just explain explained it a little bit more.
because what you're trying to do is basically avoid incompatible roofs.
Maybe you should just come with pictures.
That's what I think, I was just gonna suggest that, yeah, so the suggestion that was happening at the same time was this, for this one, for 5.1.5, is that let's try to find some pictures that explain this, and if the pictures can't explain it, then maybe it's not a good guideline.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Pictures can guide them.
Yep.
Well, let's illustrate it, see what happens.
Oh, yeah.
Human scale.
Definitely illustrate.
Is anything else? Don, you're quiet over there, and Doug. You guys are quiet.
No, I suggested a building east of the fire station.
That's
Yeah.
true. Okay, Dawn's quiet.
We can't get Doug to stop talking, what are you talking about?
Do you have any thoughts on 5.1.0, thoughts about visual complexity? I mean, I guess you didn't, I don't wanna pick on you too much. You did say something about it.
What is that top photograph
This is-
represent?
That's a good question. Oh, modesty. I think it's.
Restrain building forms, materials, and details.
Is there a better one for that? Does anyone have anything about, I mean, that is a very simple building.
It's a very nice picture.
Yeah.
No blockers.
Our fairy tale cottages are not simple, I keep bringing that up.
That's true.
Modest.
Okay, then I think we can cruise along to the 5.2s. Establish a sense of human scale in building design. So we have a host of these, actually. There's 6 or 7 of them to look through. So this one I think is going to be, we've had some where, just get pictures of materials. I think this is one where I would ask everyone to take a look at some of the keywords, because I think that this is, going back to our first couple, this is a bit more philosophical than actual specific materials. So, look at words that you guys think are really important to get pictures of, things like horizontal articulation techniques or visible openings. Like, what do you guys think are important to get into this?
Lots of pictures.
Of what? Give me words that you want pictures of.
When it comes to really amazing eave detailing, the plaza.
Okay, amazing eave details, okay.
Grand, oversized.
Okay.
Entryways.
So Marianne, are you thinking for 5.2.2? Or am I looking, cornices, yeah, so that would be the playa maybe?
No, I said the plaza.
The plaza.
That's what I meant,
And as a good example, yes?
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Is there another example?
525,
Mm-hmm.
suggest a new wall on Mission Street of the Sands Hotel.
5.2.5
It was still,
as an example of what not to do. The
what's on-
unbroken space, yeah.
Great,
It's not going to be forever, but I know what you mean.
take a picture now.
Yeah. I have a picture. I have a picture that you sent me, so I'll use that.
On Dolores, there's that, 50s or 60s motel back that's just awful. On 4th and Dolores on the northeast side.
Mm.
That's what we've been talking about.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, behind Hoff's house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As an example of what, Carol?
Vertical and horizontal, to reduce the apparent mass of a larger building and to create visual interest. There is no visual interest whatsoever, and it is a large mass of building, stucco.
Remind me where that is, motel between?
Behind Hoff's house. Down.
Yes, south of Hoff's, the back side of Hoff's house.
Okay, so it's
Yeah.
specific.
Yeah.
Northeast corner of Dolores and Fort.
That's
Yeah.
it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I would argue personally that this is a hard thing to understand without an illustration, and that's the one where people oversize windows for the architectural style. If we can find that, doesn't have to be in town, but that happens a lot, where you,
Just had a brand new one, same building, you can demonstrate all that,
so
I just.
we need a commercial example of that, where you're trying to make a mission-style building, for example, and you've got these enormous, unbuildable, you can only build it with a skyscraper technology, so that's why it looks funny.
What are you talking about?
So when
Which
you,
one?
you have to, it's 5.2.5, which is about the ratio of windows to the style or to the language or to the mass of the building, and it has to, we want to remind people that that's an element of good architecture, is that you get that sizing right, that ratio right.
Okay.
So I think some X's there would be nice.
Would Ian be willing to go around to Pacific Grove and Monterey or wherever?
Again, we want to make the professional's job as easy as possible. So what we're looking about, from talking to him myself, he doesn't want to do any thinking.
Yeah.
He wants us to do the thinking.
We're gonna scout too, so we're gonna think, we're gonna scout, and we're gonna say,
Go
here's where
there.
the pictures need to be taken.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go there and frame it in this way. So again, that's the virtue of the snapshots. If you see if you have just a junky snapshot, but it has a location, you say, this is, and I think this would illustrate this, then the professional, he doesn't want to think about it, he just wants to be mechanical.
And out of respect for his time, because he's generously volunteering to help us with this, so we need to be sensitive to that as well.
So if we find something in town that demonstrates a bad thing, take a picture of that and see if then the next task would be to find a comparable one in an adjoining city.
Yeah,
You could do that.
that's good, yeah.
And
Yeah.
you can use those note-taking, I think.
Yeah.
You really can.
Yeah, but I can't stress enough, like, if you do drop a picture into that, make sure that, like, we know what it's for. Like, don't just throw a picture and say, this is bad.
And whether it's in town or not, too, right?
It's
Well,
location.
where it is.
Yeah, where it is, yeah, so we can get back to it. That would be helpful, yeah,
And the number by it, yeah.
yeah.
And maybe,
Yeah.
oh, here's a way to do it, actually, because this is what a habit I was doing for myself, and I told you at the beginning of the meeting that I threw some photos in there. I didn't do that for this, but for my own collection that I've been looking around, I put the number that I think it applies to in the title of how I title my photo, and then you can put the location for Ian. So I think it applies to, 5.2.
When you save the file name
The
is what
file
you're saying,
name,
yeah.
in the file name, because if you're gonna use this resource that Ian put together, then we will not have any peripheral information except the file name. So put the number that you think it applies to, and put the location of where you took the snap.
2 points. One is, I'm hesitant to use photographs from out of town.
In
Dory did that in our first workshop, and there was a lot of criticism.
True.
Okay. Second, Catherine, it was at the Morgan Building, west side of Dolores, it got remodeled a couple of years ago, where Westbrook Gallery is now.
Where?
Westbrook Gallery building did get remodeled.
Okay, well, whatever, it was just by the bank, the old bank building. That's a lot of glass in front.
Yes.
Oh, the one that used to be Conway of Asia?
Yes,
Uh-huh.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
way too much
disaster,
glass.
disaster,
Yeah.
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 Oh, that's next to La Bicyclette, between La Bicyclette and Lucas.
The China Arts
The
Building.
big white building?
Next to
Just
the
north of
next.
the
China Arts Building.
But no, Doug's saying north of the China Arts. It's not that, he's not talking about the China Arts building. Okay, it's north of, oh, I know which one you guys are talking about. It used to be City Hall or something, right? Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay, now I know which one you're talking about.
Now, just to contribute a positive for columns and pilasters, the China Arts building, I think, would be a really good.
Okay, columns and pilasters, China Arts, got it.
We're still on, you're at 5.2.2 still? Okay.
And we're just, any of the 5.2s, we're just taking these all in chunks. So if there's anything else in the 5.2s, throw it at us.
Now, balconies are another one of those examples where we say we don't want fake stuff, but the town is full of fake balconies, so.
Like a Juliet balcony, you mean?
No, really fake balconies. There's a window and there's a balcony down below, which is actually something we say just, but it's part of the town, and there's a lot of that in town, so.
Yeah, and it looks nice.
Yeah.
So you're saying it does,
So-
sometimes, usually.
So you're saying a window where you definitely could not step out?
Yes,
But then a kind of place where you could step if you could crawl through the window, but so it's not really a balcony.
yeah.
They just put them brand new on what used to be the pork chop place on the corner there. The new hotel that's being built.
It's Carlos Sands,
Oh, the Sands, yes.
but they actually have windows, doors behind it that go down.
Well, but on the restaurant part, they don't.
Uh-huh.
They just put up new balconies that aren't really balconies. They look nice, but they aren't real. And they're on what I'm calling it, Kurt Raising used to own it, the pork chop place. It's called Chop House, the Chop House.
The chop house, Grazing's chop house, okay. Okay, anything else? We're all getting hungry now thinking about pork chops. Anything else in the 5.2s?
Well, I would argue that, oh, Ian.
Hey, Ian. So 5 point,
Commercial, but you
yeah.
can watch the tape.
Yep, just,
Good.
And
great.
Eric couldn't make it because he
Just-
had an emergency.
So 5.2, anything else in the 5.2s?
Well, I would say for 5.2.7 is
Mhm.
ripe for illustration because that is gonna become important also for housing and everything. So having good examples of rooftop things that go back
Mm-hmm.
and then bad examples from elsewhere. So I don't think, you're not advocating for all of our bad examples to be from town, but all the good examples for sure. But you're saying it's okay to, like, cause the exercises you're talking about that people were upset about were when we were talking about, like, would this be good for Carmel, but it was nothing to do with Carmel. But if we have bad examples from out of town, that's okay with you?
No,
No, not,
I think about using photos from out.
Okay, so Doug's suggesting no photos from out of town. Got it.
so anyway, but 5.2.7,
Okay.
I think is really
I mean,
important.
it would,
Go ahead.
it would be worth a try to do one round just with good examples, and then see whether you need bad examples, whether you need access.
Maybe I would offer that some of our guidelines say what not to do. And that's what the guideline actually says, like, do not do this. So in those cases, if we want to illustrate those, we might need a picture of what that not to do thing is.
Yeah, I like emphasizing the positive, but maybe once in a while we'll really need it.
Yeah, maybe not focus on them so much. Because I do think there's a couple guidelines that actually, if we're gonna try to illustrate it, maybe we don't illustrate those ones, but if we wanna illustrate one that says, don't do this, you might need to have a example of what not to do.
I just agree with Doug that using, I do not, I live in Pacific Grove for a short time before when I got here, so I just, it's such a different town,
Mhm.
that nothing's really applicable.
Well,
I didn't mean to pick on them. I'm
let's,
sorry.
And then it's also a neighbor of ours, that's not kind of
Yeah.
nice either, to just pick all that stuff from the neighboring town, I mean, that's weird.
yeah, and I live there, so I'll be offended personally,
Exactly.
so.
We'll come right photograph you.
Okay, Carmel, we write the design guidelines and all the bad examples.
Yeah.
from Monterey.
Well, let's try this then. I mean, if the committee's up to it, we can try our best to get the don't do photographs in town, and see what we can do to not offend people and cut in as best we can.
That sounds good. Just going to say, if you can't find structure in Carmel that you don't like, you've done a good job.
Yeah.
So I would say stay to Carmel.
I agree.
All right. So that might be the 5.2s. Just really quick, Ian, because you are going to play a role in this. What we're doing is, you may have already figured it out, but we've got the 2 sets of design guidelines that we've been working on, the drafts, and we literally just made a spreadsheet that we're going line by line and saying, what we've done actually is we've now chunked them into sections. So like different all the 5.2s, they kind of relate to the same thing. So we're highlighting keywords, or if anybody has a picture in their head, like, oh, this building would be perfect to represent this. And we're just taking notes. We're doing here is ideally coming up with like a shoot list or what we want to go get, and then we will go and take snapshots and figure out of where they are, and then hand them over to you if you're going to help us with this. So you don't waste a bunch of time. But we're doing the initial sort of like what kind of pictures do we want to capture today? Yep.
And then you can do the good work.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to the 5.3, which I think is just its own, just by itself. Keep the overall color scheme muted and devoid of bright, high-intensity colors. I think that's an easy one to figure out what to do. Okay. 5.4, where existing single-family uses are grandfathered, apply the single-family residential design guidelines. I don't think so. It's pretty self-explanatory. Hey, we're in the 6s. We got 10 minutes. We can do this. Okay, 6.0, detail every property authentically and consistency, which gets us to the 6.1s, to apply a building material in a manner that appears authentic. So I think that this one if I was gonna venture a guess, is probably more akin to the sections before where we talked about specific materials. We wanna talk about, you'll get some pictures of stone layment patterns, like this one here that's just fabulous with an X through it. Or the one down below that's a better representation of what we're looking at, where stone should be laid to look structural. So any thoughts on this one? Words that jump out at you as like keywords to search for, specific examples around town of applying a building material in an authentic way.
I want to float one thing around. Would be helpful in clarifying to say building materials should be applied in a manner that appears authentic and structural.
So we have that. So yeah, so I think and we're trying not to mess too much with language today. We're mostly trying to focus on where we need to have pictures that represent what's in here, or at least the thought of what this is trying to do. But I think taking away from what you're saying, though, we want to make sure we get pictures of stone being put in a structural way.
Is there a faux wood grain we can show? And also, I think this stone is a good example of what not to do. The one with the iconic? Yeah. So we like these two examples, okay?
I would, I think where opportunity presents, we should go for the iconic buildings. So yes, do fire station.
It's like you were listening earlier. We had that. It was like we all said we've got so many iconic buildings in town that show what we're trying to do. Yeah, exactly.
They set the bar.
Yeah, Casanova is another one that's really set back, so whatever that related to in the back, where the building is set back a bit from the street and has a courtyard kind of in front. Yeah.
You two know what you're talking about. What are you talking about?
Oh, the restaurant on Casanova?
Oh, the restaurant.
Casanova.
Not the street, the restaurant. Yeah.
So we're talking about back to the courtyard point, or the forecourt.
Yeah, the forecourt. There's a forecourt. Okay.
All right, I'm putting it down here.
So do we still have the man-made,
Yeah, let me tell you what that says.
it was 6.1.4.
Where, is it this one, this one? No, further down?
I think detail new and/or man-made materials in ways authentic to their own composition. For example, carefully plan the wood grain and modules of formwork for exposed. I think we even did away with that one because it just didn't make any sense.
Don't float the stone. No, here it is.
Detailed new and
1.9.
manufactured
We have
materials. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I think that
Good examples, I think.
we can find some good examples of that.
6.1.9.
On the one you guys are looking at, it's 6.1.4 though. Yeah.
What about 6.1.1 where it says true craftsmanship?
Yep. Yep. That's great. 6.1.1.
A lot of those
Some iconic buildings.
Yeah, the comment was to represent 6.1.1 really thoroughly. I would offer the 6.1.4, like the Seven Arts building is a really good example. That, I mean, that's all.
6.1.6, there are some faux finished buildings that are really spectacular that I've been noticing around town.
Yeah, we actually, and you're right, because we changed that when we went back through, because Mary Ann brought that up too, that the way it originally was written on the draft you're looking at it took a lot of stuff out that actually is what we do want to see. So we did update that language, but we'll get good examples so that it's clear what it is we're looking for.
Yeah, the examples are key there.
And it was more about the modeling, because the modeling is okay, but it's the the faux finishes of like faking wood grain with paint and things like that. That's a faux finish versus modeling, which is a classic sort of technique.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
Okay. So then 6.2, use building materials or features in a consistent manner. Any thoughts or comments on this one? Jumping out at anybody?
That building, I still have a problem. The building, it's not on Mission that's a mishmash, a little garage and then the house portion of it. It's all over the place and it's as charming as one could imagine. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? On Mission, south of town. Oh, I'm sorry, I switched over, sorry.
But you're right, that shouldn't be in the commercial district. Carol, you're totally right. All right, 6.2s, we've got things like, stopping wall materials at outside corners. I mean, that's an easy one to get a picture of. Primary materials.
So where is that in the printout version, the primary material? Oh, I see. Okay, so just, that one got changed, so let me just read this. It's simplified now. 6.2.2 now says, use one primary material for building walls with at most one additional subordinate material. That's all it says right now.
So that's easy to get a picture of.
And this, I'm not sure why this did you guess why that one's there? It's a very pretty example of something. The one with the balconies.
6.2.1.
Yeah, that's the code. What is it, what's it supposed to
Do not stop wall materials at outside corners, instead wrap them around the entire visible building element. So I think it's wrapping the porch.
They're wrapping.
Yeah, but I don't think that's actually what the
It's not a
guideline is, but no, it's not, because this is more about stone,
Well,
not
maybe
dying
just
at
the
one corner.
primary and the secondary.
Yeah.
Because this is like a stucco building, or is it stone, with a wood overlay.
Mhm.
I don't know, I like that picture or that building for something.
Yeah, primary material, I think.
wraps around?
Maybe
Yeah.
the primary material.
Yeah, but I know, like, I don't think that that's a good representation, because what that guideline is, the way we apply it is, think about someone putting stone. If they don't dye it into an internal corner or take it all the way around the building, it looks fake. When you just stop it on an outside corner, that's what that's supposed to be doing. So it doesn't really relate to the patio. But I think to Victoria's point, it'd be good, this picture is a good picture, and is a good example of like a primary material, or something like that. Okay. Uniformity, we can figure out some pictures for uniformity. 6.3, use architecturally integrated details to provide pedestrian interest.
This is, what springs to mind right now is Doug's tile obsession. Like, it'd be really nice to have a little bit of a decorative library here of like little things that are very crafted, that are at eye level or close to it. So this could be like a little art project of trying to find these little artistic moments on these buildings. That's one aspect to this.
Yeah, I would look at like Las Tiendas, some of our Spanish Revival originals. There's you go inside, the Carmel Cafe, the cafe down the hallway there, there's this big, chunky, obviously hand-carved wooden balustrade. It's just like, it's awesome, right? Just awesome. So that's, things like that are
That's in the same building, Las Tiendas?
yeah, that's Las Tiendas. That's a really, it just feels great. You look at that.
Tiles.
Oh, you like tiles?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a little Napoli.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's a couple more of them at least.
Yeah,
in
oh,
town.
yeah.
El Paseo, those are
Yeah.
the
So tiles are one of the guidelines also call out things like functional awnings as a way.
I like this picture here, I don't know
Mhm.
if that's functional.
What do you mean, we talked about?
The awning one.
Yeah, it's cute.
It gives shade.
Functional, yeah, we talked about functional. Remember, it's not that it moves in and out. Like some of them can move in and out, but it actually serves a
It's not like
purpose.
a little
Function means
fake
purpose, I
awning.
think, in this case, yeah.
I think that's
It's
a
a great
people
sign,
like that
great
picture.
sign.
Yeah, I think that's at the Grazings building, yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, exactly. This could be also, the picture above could be functional balcony, because that is a functional
Mhm.
balcony, it looks to me.
It
Well,
is.
At least you've got,
They just rebuilt it so you can walk on it in the last couple of years.
all right.
But I thought we weren't going to insist on functional balconies.
Well, we certainly have a lot that aren't, is what we were saying.
Okay, and signs, we can do signs, that's easy.
Maybe that
that's not the best picture.
I don't think it is. Yeah. It's not a simple sign.
Better sign.
No, but it's a nice one.
Okay, anything else in the 6.3s jumping out at anyone before
One
we?
thing to remember here for 6.3 is that they're supposed to be architecturally integrated details. So it's kind of something to just remember that, like a tile on a stairway qualifies, a balustrade qualifies, the awning qualifies. This particular sign, I don't even see the context, so I don't even know if it qualifies. We might love the sign, but is it architecturally integrated? We don't know, because, I mean, I know where this is, but, so.
Yeah, we have a lot better examples of signs that are architecturally integrated.
So we're gonna eliminate this one?
I think that's a good picture to change out.
Yeah.
So are we, I'm sorry, catch me up, where the sign should be architecturally integrated?
Well, just for this 6.3.0,
You got
that
it, the
this,
7 art sign, which is hand carved,
Yeah.
bam,
Yeah.
yep, and that's.
Yeah. And so our sign ordinance and our sign, we have a whole set of design guidelines within the sign ordinance itself that talks about colors and materials being, it doesn't necessarily mean it needs to be like physically integrated to the building. It just needs to relate to the building. Yeah. Yeah.
I actually think, I know there was a lot of controversy for 7th and Dolores sign because it's oversized, but that's an oversized building. And I was on the council, I will come clean, that,
You broke the rules.
where we did make an exception because,
The metal
Yeah.
lettering,
yeah, it was in violation, but because we were the council, we threw our weight around and said that fits with the architecture. I think it's actually a very lovely sign.
We'll move on from Victoria incriminating herself here.
The Wells Fargo has similar, metal lettering,
Mhm.
standing in
Right.
that's
Yeah.
another one.
Wells Fargo,
Appropriate.
Okay, we can do it. We got one more to go and then we're done. So the 6.4s enhance the pedestrian experience by providing a sense of discovery along the street. And I think we've talked a little bit about this already with the courtyards, the entrances to the courtyards, like the Derling building. But this is not necessarily having a courtyard for somebody to go to, but how the building fronts, it looks like, provide features at the street level, storefronts with views to inside activities, flower boxes, providing amenities and outdoor spaces like plantings, art fountains, street furniture, public sidewalks from adjacent outdoor spaces. So what are we thinking on this one? We've got a couple of pictures here. Do we love them? Do we not like them?
We can do better.
I think we can do better. Yep. Agreed. Okay.
Like the David Lang,
The Derling.
David Lang Real Estate.
Oh, yeah.
That alleyway that
Yeah.
goes to the barber.
That is a good one,
Yeah,
yeah.
the Link Real Estate
That was
on
wonderful.
Lincoln, really
Yeah.
nice.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, the comment was the David Ling pathway there on Lincoln. Okay.
I just want to point out that I think this, just to differentiate from the one right before, this is not architectural details. So these are other amenities mostly on the street, or, and I guess we're saying there might be, yeah, information kiosks. I don't really see, artistic window displays. So that's the only thing that's kind of off the street, I guess, is things that might be right inside the display. Hard to believe that we could.
This, and I think I think you're touching, like, this is why it's within this, adjacent to this 6.3, because it still, has mention of tile in this section as well, as sort of like we've used the term gift to the street several times in this group. Like, this is your part of your gift to the street section. So that might be something to look for in the photographs, is buildings and things that give a gift to the street, more or less.
Street furniture. So I don't know, do people have thoughts, like memories of really great benches or anything around town that are just spectacular examples on their own? Because these do not have to be integrated. This is not about integrated with the architecture.
Okay, built-in stone fence at the, on the wall, garden wall at the library.
Library built in.
Oh, yeah, there's benches built into the wall. Yeah, good.
The Be Real courtyard that also has the toy,
Yes.
yeah, I mean, they've got,
The fountain there.
I don't know that they have a fountain right now, but, maybe they do. But they've got a bench in there, and it's a neat little sitting area, and
Which one, Nancy?
this is where Be Real is the.
Right behind the,
It's right behind Seven Arts.
Oh, the Seven Arts building. Okay, Seven Arts
That
building.
is part of the 7 Arts.
Yeah.
That is
when you go down Lincoln.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
That's, yeah, that,
Also the first Murphy House walkway area.
If it's well kept up, but it's not always.
Oh,
Yeah, I think it is now.
Village Corner, they're matching.
yeah, that's.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yes.
Village Corner. Yeah, okay, those are good examples. All right, well, that gets us to the,
Sidewalk, well, hold on, before
What?
we leave this, the sidewalk paving, I know we're a little 5 minutes over, but I don't know if this is a great example, but I do think we do have to put something about the commercial district paving patterns, and I think that
Oh, yes.
probably requires a handful of photos, because we're trying to show a range of what's nice, and you tell me, Brendan, but I understand this is an area where an owner would be involved, even though it's on public property.
Not necessarily.
No?
The owners can be involved, so if an owner of a building wants to upgrade the sidewalk, we will partner with them and share some costs.
So then it belongs in here too.
Yeah, but the city can also just do a sidewalk if we want. We don't have to get the owner's permission. They don't have to be involved. I would say because we have those, the design guidelines, that have the illustrations of the different laying patterns, we just go and take a picture of every one of those laying patterns in town.
Yeah, I
There's
mean, I
like
also
5 or
think
6 of them.
this could be an X area, because we do have a public code, I mean, we do have public guidelines for the city when they do their sidewalks of what geometries and materials they allow or we allow as a public. And so we certainly wouldn't say that a private partnership would deviate from that
Nope.
badly.
Nope.
So I think this requires a little collection of
Yeah.
good examples around town, and then maybe not around town, but just either a reference to we can do underline to the municipal code hyperlink where it shows what you cannot do. But this, I feel like this is really, this is an interesting one because we have such variety, and we really, I think, try to capture that, I think would be helpful here.
Because the layout is really pretty, it's just that this interlocking concrete block is, I don't know how that got permitted in town, that's really nice.
The interlocking concrete block retaining wall, is that what you're talking about, or?
The ground plane,
On this example. This one
because
is,
the layout's really nice, but then you have
This on
this
Unibrow?
really bad.
well, this is a bad photo. I don't think this may not be interlocking. This is just running bond brick pattern.
Yeah.
But it resembles the interlocking one. Here.
Yeah, I think they're sandset. They're sandset pavers.
But there's something about the texture that makes you think they're interlocking, I know. But here's a good example of how nice it will be when we can all blow up the photos on
Yeah.
our screens
Yeah.
and see what it really is there.
Okay, so that gets us through the commercial.
So what are we gonna do about these two pictures that we have? Are
Uh,
we gonna leave them?
I think we decided both of these are going. Yeah, both of these are gonna go.
Replace them with better.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so because I do have to go and pick up my daughter, so we got through the commercial. I'll leave it up to the committee what you want to do. We can reschedule another meeting and go through the residential on its own, or you can say we've philosophically figured out how we want to approach photos. Staff work with whoever, like Ian and Eric, and run through this list and do the same treatment and then go work on photos? Or do you guys want to have another meeting, schedule another meeting to go through the residential on its own?
Committee
Yeah.
wants two residentials
Yeah.
meeting. You two? Yes? 3?
Okay, I'll just schedule with everybody. I mean,
Have to have a meeting then.
okay,
So sooner the better.
I hear you. Yeah, this was literally the first meeting we could have where everyone's schedules lined up from the last one, so. Yep.
I have a question that maybe we should, or to the whole committee, maybe would it be more effective if a first round would be done by staff?
A first round for residential?
For residential, because a lot of what we did today, it gives guidance already, which ones we can group and where we would need individuals, and then if you already have an example, you can say, this is not a good example, we should have more photos here, we should do,
it gives us much more to work with if we have somebody do some groundwork. Or even a subcommittee here could do a ground, if that's allowed, I don't know, could do some
That's allowed.
groundwork. So, is what would I think.
I could
Would be
totally
worth
go either way.
considering.
I could totally go either way. So Marion's making the argument that it'd be maybe easier to do residential if we had some kind of sketch laid out options that are more than what we have from.
Which would come later, so we would basically, staff would take the direction we got for this, do the same thing in residential, go take the pictures, then come back and say, this is what we came up with for residential and commercial. That's gonna take a little while, that's gonna be, you know, then you have, or if the committee feels more comfortable going through residential and doing the same exact exercise we just did today, that's fine too. You just let me know and I'll schedule and do whatever you guys want.
Well, here's another thought. If it's gonna take a while, which of course it will, then the question is, and we wanna keep things on schedule, we could also turn the agenda to another category of topic for next, like the materials, for example, the preferred materials, or any other things in the sandwich. So I would say, let's put it that way, not a yes or no, but what should we do next? Should we do a residential version of this, or should we have staff work ahead on the residential and then do something else for our next meeting? So what's your pleasure?
I'd rather do like we've done today.
Okay,
I like to hear what everybody has to say. It's very beneficial.
yeah, okay.
Extremely beneficial.
You sticking with that? Don? Okay, so we
Okay.
have a majority.
I'll work on scheduling with everybody then, as soon as possible.
So for the next agenda,